I'm counting here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
No, because the executive committee, we need N over 2 plus 1 of the executive committee. We don't have 21 people on exec.
We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Like 14, because don't forget, Jim and Daryl don't count for quorum.
I thought Daryl did count for quorum. No?
No, task forces, I believe, do not count for quorum. I mean, if you, it kind of doesn't matter because he's here. So, so either he doesn't count for quorum and the fact that he's here doesn't get us anything, or he does count for quorum and the fact that he's here does. So there are 10 committees, plus we have
Plus the 6 members of the executive,
plus
or
we
the
have
elected.
6 members of the executive committee, so that's 16.
We still need 9, so it's just 1 under what I assumed.
Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. Is Kathy coming?
No, unfortunately, Kathy is out of the city. We will not be able to participate today.
So we need Faye, we need Steve. We need
Isidro,
Isidro,
Barbara.
Mary, and Barbara.
Let me check Barbara.
And Debbie.
And Debbie. And Wayne. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Hey, Ebenezer, can you make me a co-host, please?
Yeah, I was about to ask Matt if you want to put up the PowerPoint you created.
Okay, Debbie's logging in.
All right, we have Wayne. That leaves us at 1 short, and then we can get started.
Okay, you can ignore that phone call, Wayne. That was me calling you to see where you are. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
There we go. Okay, with Debbie, we are at quorum. So I'll call the meeting to order at 6:37 p.m. Jumi, you've got the notes or the minutes for today, right? Thank you. I see you nodding your head. That's a yes. Somebody, do you want to put up the PowerPoint?
Yeah, I'm just asking Ebenezer, can you please make me a co-host so I can screen share? Thank you.
Yes, I did it already.
I think
You made me a co-host. I mean, I don't mind, but I think you meant to make Simari a co-host. I totally see. We look a lot alike, so I totally see what you did there.
What happened?
Glasses.
Wasn't up. Got it?
Yeah. I promise I won't like photobomb anything.
okay, is it on full screen now?
Yeah, it's on full screen. We can see everything. Thank you. Okay, well, welcome all to our May Executive Committee meeting for Community Board 12. I will get started by delivering the chair's report. Well, there were some meeting norms for us to follow that I'm sure we have all been accustomed to at this point, but putting up on the PowerPoint and giving folks, a few seconds here to read our meeting norms. Okay, the meeting was called to order at 6:37, and I can start with the chair's report. For those of you that weren't here when I just mentioned it a few minutes ago, unfortunately, our chair, Catherine Diaz, is unavailable for this evening, so she will not be here to chair this meeting nor to deliver this report. But she did provide me with some notes that I will read out to you all, and then I'm gonna give most of my time from the report over to Kara and Demetrius, I hope I said that correctly, from Service Design Studio, who will be providing us with an update on the work that they have been asked to help us with. But very quickly, first piece is branding discovery.
Sorry, Angel, to interrupt, but could we
Yes.
get the recording started?
Ebenezer?
Yeah, it's recording.
Okay, thank you, Simari. Sorry about that. Oh, there it is.
It was live, my bad.
Yeah, it was live. The recording hadn't started. Branding
you.
discovery sessions with Afternoon Culture have been underway. I can tell you that I participated in one session already. It has been a fabulous experience. There will be some updates over email in the coming weeks for feedback and input based on some of the sessions that we've already started. The annual membership orientation will take place next month. Tentatively, it's Saturday, June 10th, starting at 11 a.m. at our office. There is a possibility that may get pushed back to the 17th, but letting you all know as chairs that we are tentatively on hold for Saturday, June 10th at the moment. If you want to write that down as a save the date, information will be put out and shared with everyone, but put that on your calendar. Liz, I see your hand. I'm going to finish this piece and then I'll get to you. Remember that our general meeting will take place in hybrid form. That means that we need to have a quorum of members of the full board present. So I encourage every single chair here to call the members of their committee and get them to show up in person. We need as many people to show up in person as possible. Remember that the meeting, and Ebenezer, correct me if I'm wrong, will take place at the Westbury building for our general board meeting. So please, please, please make your calls so we can get as many folks physically and present. At the Borough Board, Kathy mentioned here that they've been discussing open meeting laws and the need to get minutes and resos in on time so that we can be in compliance. Just a reminder that resos and minutes have to go up on the website ahead of our general meetings moving forward for folks that are going to be participating virtually so that they have access to the information just as we have access to it for those that are participating in person. Liz, I'll take your question and then I'm going to turn it over to Service Design Studio. You're on mute, Liz.
Sorry, as soon as I took my hand down, my box moved and I couldn't find the mic thing. So I'm going to be out of town on the 17th and unable to attend an orientation if it's moved to then. And on the 10th, I will be in town and I can attend, but not until 1 o'clock because I will be at synagogue services. So.
Okay. I will take note of that and take that as feedback to get back to Kathy.
Thanks.
As we decide on the final date and time. Maria?
Thank you, Angel. Very helpful. Just a question. Has the monthly newsletter with kind of like for the community board gone out? I only received one. And I haven't received any others. And I know there was an issue at one point with me not being receiving the emails, but I haven't seen any since then. So I wasn't sure if one went out for May.
I believe that one did go out for May. Let me.
I got one, I think, the other day.
Okay. I will look. I think I have, but if someone could forward it to me and then I will sort it off offline. Thank you.
Simari has put her thumb up and she will make sure to take care of that for you.
Thank you.
You got it. All right, so now I want to give the platform over to Service Design Studio so they can give us, some information on the way that they're looking to support our board.
Yes, thank you so much, and thank you all for letting us be here. Oh, Liz has her hand up again.
Yeah, sorry, this is sort of a borough board holdover. Have we gotten the new appointments yet from the borough president, which we were told we would be getting at the end of April, which has, of course, come and gone?
Kathy did not provide that as an update for this particular report.
Okay.
Maria, is that an old hand or a new hand?
Sorry, old hand.
Okay. All righty, Service Design Studio, take it away.
Thank you so much. We have a really short presentation here. We really just want to talk to y'all for a few minutes and just really introduce ourselves. I believe I have the ability to share screen. If not, I can put the presentation within the link. What it's saying, host disabled participant screen sharing. Oh, there we go.
Oh, you got it. Okay.
Thank you. All right. So once again, thank you all for allowing us to be here. My name is Demi Canty. I'm here with my colleague, Kara Tuluenga. I think I got it right. I've been getting her on the last 3 months. So let me just minimize this. So the Mayor's Office for Economic Opportunity creates evidence-based programs and innovative methods to reduce poverty and increase equity. Our department consists of data integration, research, evaluation, technology, digital product, and design, which is us, the Service Design Studio. Some of our goals are building the city's design capacity to leverage service design tools and tactics, developing best practices for centering communities in the new and existing services and programs, and partnering with agencies and community-based organizations on projects focused on low-income New Yorkers. That is a mouthful, but basically what we want to do is improve the services that New Yorkers use, and we also want to include their voice within that process, and not just the folks who are making decisions, but also the people who have to live with those decisions. Our team consists of 6 folks, 4 full-time and 2 fellows. Deanna Yu is another designer on the squad. Lindsay Richardson is the acting design director, and Chris Martinez and Victor Martinez are both our fellows, no relation. And here you have faces of me and Kara. Kara is a program manager with the SDS studio. And if I'm not mistaken, Kara, you've been there longer or almost longer than anybody else on the team.
A whole year and 7 months.
Yeah. The civic service design is a practice of creating, better understanding, and improving upon programs at any stage by focusing on the actual experiences of those involved. It is a discipline to develop solutions that are rooted in insights about the holistic experiences of those affected by public services. Basically, if you want to design something, whether it's a service or it's a chair, you want to consider the folks who are using said service or chair, whether it's their height, whether it's their size, whether it's the type of materials that they like to use. That's kind of how I like to sum up what our process is like. So the project description, for some of you who may not know, we were approached by Community Board 12 to gauge how we could support you in building tools and strategies to engage with more residents. This project will be around 3 or 4 months with a completion date of mid-August of 2023. We have worked in that some of you may be leaving for the summer, so we hope to get a lot of conversations in and one-on-one interviews and surveys before that happens. And then during the summer, we hope to reach out to community members. The goal of the project will be supporting Community Board 12 with tools, practices, and activities to engage and keep community members engaged in CB12 initiatives. Our next steps involves participatory research, which we hope to conduct with you, and also residents, and also individual research that we'll be doing on our own. For the participatory stage, we hope to attend more meetings, be able to have the opportunity to either send out surveys or ask questions. The next one we will be attending in person on May 23rd. Surveys that we hope to send out to folks, focus groups, one-on-one interviews, and walking tours. With the walking tours, we're going to take walking tours on our own, but if anyone wants to raise their hand to show us some spots within the neighborhood and the community, please feel free to do so. As far as individual research, we're right in the middle of desktop research now. It's been really, really dope hearing about a lot of work that you're doing, seeing all the videos on YouTube, which I'm gonna comb through this week. And also just seeing all the fantastic things that are already in place. The website looks fantastic. We love the idea that there's already a calendar in place and that people can sign up for it, and that there's notes going back for years. So we really want to keep diving into that and learning more and more about you and the work that you do. We hope to look into some site visits. This can be sites that you might be interested in working with, or sites that's going to be used for the community, or sites that you want feedback on from the community, and participation meetings. These meetings is more so for us to just observe and see what we can learn. That's it on my end. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me, Demi, at dcanty@nycopportunity.nyc.gov. And I will stop sharing.
So, well,
We
thank
also have
you.
we also have a survey link that we will send off to everyone. Really, it's just really seeing who's interested and talking with us as we go through this process. Cara,
And
anything?
you'll be sending that survey link over to who, Demi?
I can actually put it in the chat, and then I can send it to you as a follow-up after the meeting, if
Sure.
that works.
Yep, that works perfectly. Okay. And make sure to include Kathy in whatever you send over, Catherine Diaz. You have two hands. First is Jim, and then I see Liz. Jim, you have 2 minutes.
It'll take much less time. I'm just so happy to hear of your program and the fact that this is available to us. And you know, sometimes we can be very cynical about what our city does. Maybe sometimes it may even be appropriate, but this is the time to smile and go, wow, look at that. So thank you so much.
No, thank you.
Wonderful. Next we have Liz.
Yeah, I just clicked the link, 2 things. I clicked the link and it says you need permission. This form can only be viewed by users in the owner's organization. Try contacting the owner of the form if you think this is a mistake. So if you could take care, I know that sometimes happens with Google Forms. And the other thing is, just to be clear, so you're like a city agency and this is a service that is being provided to us that we are not paying for?
Yes. So yes, we are a city agency. One of our main focuses is improving internal services within the city. So I actually heard about the services on Steel when I was working for Child Services. I was a designer on a very small team. We partnered with them for a prevention because I worked in the preventive department. And that's kind of how I learned about them. And they've been doing this work for about 5, 6, 7 years now. I'm fairly new to the team, but it seems like it's pretty on the up and up so far.
Fantastic. Thank you.
So, Joel, you have 2 minutes on the floor.
Thank you, Angel. I appreciate you running the meeting tonight. Thank you, Demi and Carl, for a great presentation. It's truly incredible. This is free, just to piggyback what Liz said. But I'm also clicking the link and I'm getting the same message. That's the first thing. And secondly, I just want to know, is this to kind of improve the system of CB12? Exactly what are we designing? Because I may be a little lost.
Yeah, a lot of times when we use the word design, it's mainly around the process. It's taken from an actual design firm that started in California. But for us, I like to use the word participatory work. We have design because we kind of have to put it in there, but really we just want to work with you everyone on the board, everyone within the community, to see how we can improve the engagement of your residents. That was something that we were told when we were at the initial meeting. And so we kind of want to stick with that. If there's anything else, like, please let us know. But what we heard was the engagement, or at least the consistent engagement, the sustainable engagement of community members, which is something that I've seen when I work in communities before. And so our research really is going to involve chopping it up with them, chopping it up with business owners, chopping it up with everyone, and seeing like why, if you are here a lot, why do you come a lot? If you don't come at all, or if you're not interested at all, why is that so? If you're in the middle of the road, why is that? And try to figure out, it's almost like a detective looking at a big board with strings attached. And we're like, all right, how do we connect these strings to see if we can find common themes? And so a lot of that is really talking to people, doing research on our own, and putting all that together for you in a nice little package.
That sounds awesome. And just a follow-up question. So after we do that research, we kind of come up with like solutions. Are we implementing? Do you guys implement, or do we have to kind of outsource that implementation of whatever systems we come up to improve engagement?
On some projects we do implement when we have enough time. We actually practice them. We try to build something, even if it's made out of paper and cardboard, and then we actually practice it and then give it off to, whether it's IT, whether it's an app, whether it's whatever it is. For this particular project, we know that we have a deadline of August. And we also know we won't have access to a lot of the community board members during the summer. And so right now the idea is to put together something, our findings, one, and then also suggestions for what could be use, or what can be practiced with residents. And then hopefully, if y'all want to bring us back for implementation, I think we would be super open to that. But I think right now we're trying to work within the framework of the next 2 or 3 months, and hopefully we can at least have some suggestions.
Yeah, for sure. CB12 comes alive in the summertime, so
I bet.
You could feel free to reach us during the summer.
Yeah, I'll party out there a couple of times. My
Sure.
friend just left. He just went to
you.
Texas. And
Barbara,
was out there. But yeah.
Barbara, you're our last hand. You get 2 minutes on the floor.
Yeah, my question is, do you see the recommendations or the implementations you see as mainly digital and our digital outreach, or they would be more community-based, like suggestions for forums or other interactions? And then also, if it would be digital, do you actually do let's say maybe changes in software or digital design? And then the third question is, have you worked with any other community boards, and what recommendations have you made, and can we access those and see and be in touch with those community boards?
Yeah, let me see if I can remember all these questions. All right, so for the first one, I think we have to see what we hear from people. We don't want to, say it's going to be digital, or say it's going to be this, or flyers, or whatever it may be. We might talk to folks and see that consistently it's something that, because I feel like y'all have really great digital outreach at the moment. It might be something else completely that we have never even considered. It could be just accessibility. It could be maybe they don't have access to certain, digital tools, but I think we won't know until we sit down and talk to folks. I don't think the Service Design Studio has worked with another community board, but we do have projects and we do have models that we can send your way if we feel like they are similar to some of the goals that we have. A lot of our projects tend to be around
CBOs
services. We work with CBOs.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that we can put on our list this week and see if it's anything in there that we can send along your way. And then there was another question in there. Did I get all of them?
So one other question. While we often think of this as a mixed community, language is an issue, and language diversity. For example, in my building, last time I counted, 26 languages were spoken. What is your approach in terms of bridging a very, very diverse language gaps or language bridges in Washington Heights Inwood? We have not only Spanish speakers, we have Chinese, Arabic, Yiddish, Russian, Ukrainian. I mean, like I said, my building has 26 languages spoken.
Yeah, that's
And
really
it's not
important.
just translating flyers. No. It's
Yeah. Yeah, we actually just had the Civic Design Forum, and a part of our mission this year for the forum is language accessibility. We had the first forum last Thursday, which was around plain language speaking, which is basically taking difficult documents, websites, and converting them to plain language for people to understand. We know that a majority of the city, they either speak a second language at home, and a good percentage of folks don't speak English at all within the city. Our second forum, which is coming in August, is around translation and translator services. So I think like when reaching out to folks, we do have, I believe we have folks in our team, and we have folks within the service design studio or within the mayor's office who could probably support us on that. We also like have access to tools and translator tools, but I think Cara might know a little better about that.
Yeah, in the past because obviously we engage all New Yorkers, so there's tons of languages. We have some team members that speak different languages. I see the time.
No, go
but
ahead, Cara, finish. Right. You can finish up your response here.
Awesome. But we also reach out to other folks, like Demi said. So if we need translation, our goal is to talk to people, and we don't want language to become a barrier. So find ways to make it happen.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Demi, and thank you, Cara, for taking the time for, giving us this presentation and giving us more information on what you're planning to do with us during this time. And I am sure we will be reaching out for implementation because we're very excited about the partnership and the work we'll be doing together.
Thank you so much for
thank you.
having us. We'll see you all later.
All righty, with that said, we can move on to our next part of the agenda, which will be the district manager's report. Ebenezer, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Always it's a pleasure being here as your district manager. First, I would like to report that we were able to complete all the documents for our lease renewal. You recall that in March, I report that our lease was renewed by DCAS, et cetera, but it was pending the submission for registration. And that was quite hard work because the lawyers, they didn't have the information. DCAS did not have the information. And the information was for the cost plus the lease cost. We need to have the operating cost. And nobody was able to provide that. So DCAS request for me that based on the experience that we had with the last lease, for me to create the projections, how I expect, how we see the cost gonna be for the next 5 years. So we were able to do that with a back and forth. It was approved and accepted. It was submitted last week for registration to the controller's office. Hopefully that is approved this week, and we will be able to start processing payments for our new lease renewal. As the end of the fiscal year of 23 approach, we are preparing for the closing of the fiscal year. We are moving monies from funding from one side to another to achieve all the envision that we have, creating the branding, buying new computers, et cetera, et cetera. I have been seeking quotes for vendor for laptops suitable to our needs. The Department of OTI, they promised that they're going to be sending something to us. I asked them since February to give me some models. I haven't received anything. Nevertheless, I have to go around with former vendors. This is what we need. What do you have? You're still working for the city, and I'm waiting for a quote. I attended a meeting convened by community leaders regarding the Wright Brothers Playground, that they had a situation with rodents condition, and they put a meeting together with me, an elected official representative and Parks Department representative, and we were there and observed the situation. The report the Parks Department had was that the flooding condition was under control. Nevertheless, because we were walking around, we observed that the flooding condition is still there, and it was promised to take care of that. I get a report from the manager and the area that the exterminator came back to the park and took care of the condition. The office is preparing for our first hybrid meetings after COVID. That meeting gonna be Tuesday, May 23rd at 6:30 p.m. at the Roseberry Pavilion located at 1150 St. Nicholas Avenue and West 168th Street. So we are very excited to have our first hybrid meeting with at least half of the board members present. If you have any questions regarding this meeting, please let us know. More than happy to help you and assist you. This is the end of my report. I see that we have a question from Miss Liz Reader. Liz?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you for meeting with the folks around the Wright Brothers Playground. I was actually going to ask you about that, so I appreciate that it was in your report. And
Thank
if you just kind of like stay on top of that, I know Parks is aware of the issue, but I think it's always good when it's clear that somebody else is watching and paying attention. The rat problem is pretty severe.
Yes, especially in that particular playground, because NISHAD and the SOWIT are around that. I have it on my agenda for the Thursday District Service Cabinet meeting to follow up. The next question is Steve Simon. Steve? Hi, Steve.
I have two questions. The first one is, did you say that we're spending some of our money on branding? I'd like to know what that means. And my other question is, what are we doing to try to ensure that more than half of the board shows up at the general board meeting?
Well, last month, our chairperson made a report about it. In this meeting, I don't know if you recall some works that she has been doing to get a branding and templates for our board. I would like to refer to you to that report because I don't have all the details with me right now. But I know that I need to make sure that we have the funds to pay for that. And also what we're doing to get people to that meeting. Well, we sent already an email. The office sent an email at the beginning of the month. We are contacting people. We're doing a survey, and we'll continue to do that this week. And we just mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, our acting chairperson, Mr. Angel, recommend that every chair, please call your committee members and make sure, tell them, they need to go there. We need at least 26 people to have quorum in person to have this meeting on next week on Tuesday.
And if we don't have 26,
Then we're gonna have the meeting.
and not have the meeting.
No, we're gonna have it according to the open meeting law. So please call your members and encourage them to come to the meeting. The office sent emails already asking for a survey, and we're gonna do that, but
yeah, and Steve, there's a section in our agenda today where we're going to discuss the hybrid general meeting, and I think that that'll be a good place for us to share some strategies that we could possibly share with one another.
All right, very good.
Okay.
Is there any other question? I don't see any other question, Mr. Chairman. So thank you very much. God bless you all.
Thank you. All righty, so now we're ready for our treasurer's report. Michelle, you have 10 minutes on the floor.
Okay, I'm gonna try share screen, and okay, I need permission to share screen. Sorry, I should have asked you earlier. Thank you.
You got it.
Okay, perfect. All right, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see it. You may,
Okay.
if you're able to zoom in just a tad, it might be helpful.
Is this better? Oh, that's a little too
better.
much.
Yeah, that's good.
Nope. There we go.
Back here? Okay, perfect. Okay, so I'll just kind of scroll around, or let me just open this one up a little bit. Is this good for folks?
Yes.
Looks great.
you could make it just a
Okay.
hair, oh, that's perfect. Got it. Now we can see the
Okay.
whole thing.
Great. So I'm gonna kick it off with, usually I give you a sense of, you know, when this data is pulled from and, you know, how much of the fiscal year we have left. So this data was pulled on the 12th of May, 3 days ago, and presented today to the exec committee. This means that as of today, we're 89% through the fiscal year. Fiscal year begins in July of 2022 and it ends at the end of June. So June 30th, 2023 is the last day of this fiscal year, which also means that this is the second to last treasurer's report that you will be receiving from me. As usual, the budget is separated into 3 sections. There's personal services, PS, which are salaries for staff. There's OTPS, other than personal services, which covers the office supplies and other items that we'll talk through. And then there's the lease, which Ebenezer gave a report on earlier. We can talk through that a little bit too. So these are the 3 sections, and then in each section there are different codes, and each of these codes represents different buckets. For example, PS 001 is for full year positions, which are staff salary. And you can see, for example, in staff salary, there's a budgeted amount, pending amount, liquidated amount, and uncommitted balance. This is how much the budget is, how much we have for this particular code. And pending, I believe, is money coming into the code. Liquidated is how much we've spent so far as of May 13th. And then uncommitted is sort of the remaining here. Okay, so this is the high level. I wanted to start with that as usual, and I will give you the month-to-month changes. This is how I usually make sense of the report, because you can get a sense of what we've spent and what has changed since April. So since April, we have had an increase in liquidated total, which is this column here for PS code 001, which is full year positions, 042, which is the longevity differential. And then the last one would be the supper money, 061. Those are all very expected. It's just we're continuing to pay our staff as usual. So those are all normal. And usually we would see some changes in liquidated changes in OTPS, but this month I have not seen any. So I don't believe that we've liquidated anything in OTPS this month so far. Okay, so those are high level. There are some big changes here, so I want to kind of walk you guys through it and do my best here. Ebenezer may need to jump in later with to fill in some of the gaps. So our budgeted amount used to be $232,745, and now you can see it's actually lower. So now it's $216,745, and so that's a decrease of $16K. I believe Kathy has asked to move this budget into OTPS. So you'll see that we have a couple new line items in OTPS. There is 330, which is new. This is for instructional equipment, AV equipment. And I believe this is for the computers that we'll be purchasing for the office, as Ebenezer mentioned. The other one that you would see money going into is 686, which is professional services contractual. So that currently has $10,000 in there, and together, you know, the 6,000 and the 10,000 add up to this 16,000 difference. So that was a request that Kathy had made to the MBPO office recently, and so I think they had moved the budget according to what we requested from them. So that's one thing. And the other thing I wanted to point out was there's an increase in the pending amount here. This pending amount used to be 0, but now it is $12,000, almost $13,000. And we've also had some spending in this new code, which is 055 salary adjustments, labor reserve. I believe this is for the changes in staff salary based on the contract renewals that just wrapped up. So my understanding is that this is what we've spent so far this month, and then this is probably maybe a remainder amount that we're going to get to ensure that we can pay that off. But definitely, Ebenezer, correct me if that isn't correct.
Yes, you're right. The union staff receive a bonus of $3,000 each one. I'm talking about Paola and Chanel, and they have some increase per union. And these funds that you see here, the $6,000 that is in red, was paid by the city. Because you see, the $6,000 doesn't come from our budget because we didn't have it, and the city took, this bonus given by the mayor and to the unionized. It was paid by the city, and also going to be a certain percentage increase. So that's why we have these funds here as well.
Got it. So the $12,000 extra dollars is for the increase through the end of the fiscal year.
Is it 12,000 or 6,000?
The 6,000 was the bonus. Each employee under the union got $3,000 last paycheck. Not this paycheck on Tuesday, last Friday, 2 weeks ago. They got a bonus of $3,000. Every union employee, not the managers, the union people.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Okay, and okay, so that clears that one up for me. That's very helpful for the information. Another thing that I wanted to point out was we used to have $5,000 in OTPS 499, originally from Carmen de la Rosa, and actually $4,000 has been moved into 686 professional service contractual. Again, this is the way that the 1,000 and 1,001 separate out. Is the 1,000 is from the budget and 1,001 is from our donations. So I talked to Catherine. This is earmarked for the branding proposal from Afternoon Culture. So this is why the $4,000 is in this encumbered column. Let's see. Okay, yes. And then I also want to talk about, yes, the $6,000, which I believe is computer equipment. Ebenezer, is that correct?
Yes, we put some funds there to get the computer equipment. We were told by OTI in the first conversation that the cost for 3 or 4 computers going to be in that neighborhood. Perfect.
And with the lease, as Ebenezer mentioned, he's got the lease finalized. So I can see that the amount, the whole budget amount has basically been moved into the encumbered column. So it's pretty much ready and earmarked just for paying that rent. Last thing I want to talk about is the Zoom. I've heard from Kathy that we're TBD on paying the Zoom right now. Zoom is not a city vendor, so the most we can pay them is $250. I believe there's a limit on how much we can pay them if they're not a city vendor, so we haven't currently figured out how we're going to pay them yet. That's my report, and I'll take questions, and thank you, Ebenezer, again for helping out. Start with Steve.
Michelle, you've got two hands. Steve is first, and you've got Daryl. Steve, you have 2 minutes.
Okay, I have 2 questions again. The first one is the $10,000 that's been added to 686 for professional service contracts. How do we plan to spend that by the end of June? And my second question is, what is the significance of the 3 lines that are in red?
Okay, in terms of the $10,000, I'm not exactly sure what that is what that is earmarked for. I know that the afternoon culture proposal is more than $4,000. Like they have different phases of the project, so we may be spending towards some of that. But I would have to talk to Catherine or Ebenezer, Angel. You have more information on this.
Yes, you are correct. The $10,000 together with the other 4,000 is for the cost of the afternoon neighborhood. The first phase is $4,000 that you see that it is encumbered with. We're trying to process the payment, and then the rest of the 10,000 is to complete that job. On phase 2 and phase 3, that everything is supposed to be done by the end of June. So we have the funds allocated there. In order to complete that.
And what is that job? What is the job we're completing?
Branding that is mentioned that I referred to you to Catherine's report for last month. Is the face of the design of our website, a new logo, templates for us to work and do. Catherine can give you more. I don't want to say something that is not in the purview of this conversation. Okay, it's outside the purview.
Yeah, my understanding is the same as yours. I've seen the proposal. Yeah, the first phases I think are more research, and then the later phases are more so delivering templates that staff can use for flyers or for any digital advertisement that we might want to do for the community board.
And is there any significance in the 3 items that are in red? Does that mean that they're still outstanding, or that we don't have the money for them?
Sorry. Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Yes, like we mentioned before, that's the increase that the city gave to the unionized employees.
Right.
3,000 per person. We didn't have the money. That's why I said that the city took those payments. It doesn't come from our budget. The city paid there. You see, it was not a budgeted amount. It was not pending. It was not encumbered yet. It went straight to liquidated and uncommitted because we didn't have it before. That's why it appears in red.
Well, but that's also true for the longevity differential and the supper money.
The longevity is because we don't have allocated. It been changed all the time. A few months ago, I covered it with $2,000, but it's vary accordingly. But when it's used by demand, the longevity and also the night shift differential depend. How much the time they work. So I covered it. I moved some money there, but it was used already.
So that's not a deficit. We have the money for those things.
Well, the money is here, Steve. You see, we have $216,000. The only thing that I need to do is to move money here to cover the red. I discussed that with OMB before. He said, well, don't worry about it because it will be changing. At the beginning of the year, I may put $5,000 there, but it may be used before the end of the fiscal year. To make you happy, tomorrow I can call OMB and move some money there. So next month you're going to have it in red, except for the $6,000.
Thank you. We're out of time.
Darryl, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. I think along those lines too, I'm not sure exactly what the 12,789 is for, but with the union employees also, if they're in the same union, then in the next paycheck on May 26th, they'll each receive 2 years of 3% compounded raises. And then in the following paycheck, in the first one in June, an additional 3% for the upcoming year. So I just want to point that out, as that should be coming soon.
Yeah, thanks. That makes sense. Yeah, I assume that this is what this amount is going to cover.
Thank you, Darryl. Wayne, you're the last hand for this section. 2 minutes on the clock.
Thank you, Angel. 2 things. Michelle, you mentioned there's an issue or an open question about the Zoom payment. And I mean, to my knowledge, the borough president's office has a Zoom licensing account. And I wonder if we've reached out to them to determine how it is they pay Zoom if Zoom is not a city vendor, because the borough president's office at the end of the day is a city agency.
Oh, that's a really good question. I have not reached out to them yet, but that could be like a next step for Catherine and I to figure out how we're going to get the payment done on the Zoom.
Okay, and the other thing is, this is just for clarity with Object 330 instructional equipment. If that is for the PCs, is that AV equipment note something that can be changed? Because PCs really are not AV equipment.
Yes, this is actually a question that I have for Ebenezer as well. I did notice that it's an AV in particular on our crystal report, but actually, can we build the computer items to it, because the computer data processing equipment has a slightly different code.
Is the commodity code that the city has is a very complex system for you to try to locate the code that describe what you're buying to. This is the closest one. Now, I remember to do another commodity code. I had to call for assistant, and they helped me to get a code.
So there isn't a more explicit code for PCs?
I need to look into that. And also I need to see what is the email that we sent for those equipment.
Yeah, as I said, this, I think it's just for a matter of clarity, because if one is going through this and one is, seeing a line item for AV equipment, I'm thinking of, projectors and things of that nature. I'm not thinking of, PCs or laptops. So if there's a more appropriate code or note, I would suggest we find out what that is and to use it instead.
Yes, it's like I said, the commodity code. The 330 is a code for purchase electronics, and the other code is they say, okay, what kind of electronics? Sometimes you don't find what you're looking for. It's a big headache. I can look into that again, see if we can get a better appropriate code. But really, to be honest with you, it doesn't make it any different, because at the end of the day, what matters is the vendor, what we purchase according to the request for vendor, and that is what really matters.
Yeah, I understand. I'm simply saying, for the sake of clarity, for the third time, if there is even if you can manually edit the note, but for sake of clarity, if there's a better code, if there's something that more accurately states what it is we are buying, I would suggest we find that code and use it.
Okay, I will look into that. It takes like a half a day to try to figure it out, but it's...
Yeah.
Well,
once again, maybe it's like the borough president's office, someone can say, what code do you use for PCs? We don't need to recreate the wheel.
I hear you, Wayne. I definitely hear you. So let's do Liz. This is the last hand. Liz, you got 2 minutes.
I don't need 2 minutes. Computer accessories and supplies is 203. Computer hardware and peripherals is 204. Computer hardware and peripherals for microcomputers is 205. There's a series of codes.
Can you
Google
send
is your
those?
best friend. I'll send you the link. But
Yeah,
it's
send
205 through 209. And I found it in, what was that, 45 seconds? Google is your friend.
If you could share that link, that'd be very helpful. Thank you.
I wish it could have been.
Thank you, Liz. Yeah, I didn't want to change this because this is what I got from the official mappings. So I just took the 330 and mapped it over based off of what is in our crystal report. So that's why I didn't want to change the notes around it, because I wanted to match exactly what's there. And then I know Ebenezer can follow up on if we do need to move this to a different code, or if he's able to just spend it in this code, and that's fine.
Great. Well, thank you both, Michelle and Ebenezer, for the support there. And as always, thank you for the transparency. It is always helpful to have this information on hand. The next section here is an update on the proposed special committee and the ongoing DEI work plan development. I do have a note here from Catherine that I will read out loud for everyone. So as it relates to the special committee, she says that we still do not have 5 members that have signed up. She was able to meet with Oath, who has dispute systems, design, trainings, and coaching for free. She mentioned at the last 2 meetings that they could potentially be a parallel path or a way to get things moving, right? The interaction with Oath. It seems incredibly promising as a resource that can help bring in trainings not offered by MBPO or the Civic Engagement Commission that can identify what factors we need to consider for grievances or conflict at the board. There's going to be a follow-up next week that she's having with Oath. And then Catherine plans to reach out to the members who signed up for the special committee and this executive committee to determine what's the next step given where we are this year. So that is the update that she has provided on that.
Could you send that to us?
Sure, I can. I will send that note over. Mariel, I see your hand is up.
Yes, thank you, Angel. Sorry if I missed this. Did Catherine's report include how many people have currently signed up and how many people are needed?
So what I'll do is that I'll put in the chat just a copy and paste of exactly what she sent to me.
Okay.
No, it does not contain the number of people that signed up.
Okay, it looks like we need at least 5.
Yes, you do need, the bylaws currently stipulate that you need at least 5 members to make a special committee.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Is that our newest community board member chiming in?
It sounds like it. Very cute. So let's do a review of future meeting items. So let's start with June 2023. Simari, do you want to put that on the screen so that we can all look at it together and see if there's anything that we need to work out, any kinks for June? Alrighty, I see Mariel, your hand was up first, then I have Steve. So let's start with Mariel first here.
Yes, and I imagine Steve will probably be related to my points. So I emailed the staff about this, but just wanted to put it just a friendly reminder. So for our meetings on June 1st, Health and Environment is at 6:30 and Housing and Human Services is at 7 p.m. So if those times could be corrected, please. Thank you.
Ebenezer, you take note of that? Ebenezer? You may.
Sorry, can you repeat that? We need to do, kitchen cooking now.
Yeah, not a problem, Ebenezer. So Thursday, June 1st, Health and Environment should be at 6:30, not 7. And Housing and Human Services should be at 7 and not 6:30. Looks like they were accidentally flipped the starting times.
Okay, I got it.
Thank you.
Steve, your hand is up.
Thank you, Mario, for speaking up on behalf of my committee.
All righty. Anything else on June? I think we're all set then. Go ahead. I actually see Liz's hand up, and then Steve, if you wanted to chime in after Liz, let's let Liz.
Yeah, I don't have a question about June. I have a question about July.
Okay.
Are we up to July, which is blank?
Yeah. Well, Steve, is your question related to June? I saw that you have.
My comment, I think, is related to June, July, and September. In the box way on top that gives our address, after 6th, could we just put in floor?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that actually makes sense. 6th floor.
Yeah.
Ebenezer, are you
Cool.
still cooking, or were you able to catch note of that?
Yes, I'm gonna fix that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for catching that, Steve. So let's move on over to June, July. Right now it looks blank.
Yeah, so we just, we just need to pick, we need to pick a date for the committee
Committee of a whole, right?
which we could have in July, we could have in August. I don't have a strong preference.
I think we've
And I think
traditionally
we-
done it in July, no?
We've usually done it in July. And I think we want to also maybe pick a date for whatever is going to be the summer meet and greet, whatever we're doing, you know, like we had done a couple months back.
Oh, okay, I understand. I
You know,
hear
we
you
should
on that.
pick like a date for that. I don't know.
Right, I think that there was like a
Calendar?
small workshop of people that were
Okay.
leading that charge.
Okay.
Let me take down a note on that so that when I reach out to Kathy after our meeting today, I'll let her know that.
And then, con permiso, if I could just jump ahead to September to note that, I don't know if you saw, oh no, I didn't send it to you. I sent it to Ebenezer, to the staff and to Kathy. I didn't realize she wasn't going to be running this meeting. I am delighted to report that all of the Jewish holidays this fall are on the weekends, so they don't mess with, we don't have to rearrange any of the meetings in September or October to accommodate Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, Shmini Atzeres, or Simchas Torah. They're all like on weekends except for Yom Kippur, which is on a Monday. So no issues there, but hand waving, just telling you now for April. I know I'm thinking ahead, but just note to self, Ebenezer, the April general meeting will need to be rescheduled. Don't say I didn't warn you. It's Passover.
Okay, thank you, Liz. So if we take a look at the July calendar, somebody, if you want to put that up again. And if folks want to have a quick conversation about the committee of a whole, and if it makes sense to just try to plan it for what would have been our executive committee date or our general board meeting date, pick one of those two. So that if we look at July, let's wait until it pops up. Right. I believe that leaves us with either the 17th, Monday the 17th, or Tuesday the 25th. Do we have any
may I-
strong opinions in one way or the other?
May I suggest that it be done earlier, rather at the earlier date rather than the later date, just because there may be folks who have questions and concerns about things that come up over the summer. Like the big thing that comes up over the summer is people are bitching about noise. And so I think the sooner that we provide folks the opportunity to say, hey, this is a problem for me, the sooner we're able to address it or take some kind of action, if indeed there's any action to be taken. Other than that. I
So
don't
I'm
think-
hearing a preference for Monday the 17th is what I'm hearing. Is there a preference?
Just a comment from me. I'll be at the
Mm.
Jersey Shore, the 20th to the 27th. So the 25th won't work.
So the 17th is another vote, okay?
Yeah.
Any objections to the 17th from this group?
And what exactly is this for? Because I'm new to the executive.
It's the committee of the whole. So we, as a board, we meet once a month, but only from September to June. So we traditionally have a meeting in either July or August. For the last many years, it's been in July, but there were some years prior to that where we had a meeting in August. Attendance is not required, but it's a nice idea to come together and do the kinds of things that we would do at a general meeting, provide people the opportunity to speak during a public session, hear reports, that kind of thing. They tend to be shorter. They tend to be a little more laid back. We can't really pass resolutions, or any resolutions that we pass then have to be ratified retrospectively at our meeting in September. But, you know we take the summer off, but the community is still being a community. So it's nice to provide a forum to be responsive to people's needs, questions, and engagement.
Correct.
Yeah.
Thank you for that
Thank you.
explanation, Liz.
Right.
Joel, do you feel one way or the other? Is the 17 okay, now that I have you here?
Yeah, I'm good with the 17th. I'm going on
Okay.
vacation that week, so the Monday is perfect.
Okay, thank you. I think I saw Steve, then Wayne's hand. Steve?
Yeah, I just want to say as an example of something we did at one of, I don't know if it was last year or might have been the year before. We did pass a resolution at the committee of the whole meeting, calling upon the city to provide what was then called monkeypox vaccinations for people in our community. So once in a while, there is an issue that we do feel needs to be addressed, and that cannot wait for September. We have the opportunity to do something as long as we're convening in July.
Thank you.
Was there an issue with doing it on Tuesday, the 18th?
Not necessarily. I just recommended either replacing what would have been the executive committee meeting or replacing the general board meeting. That's why those were the 2 dates that were selected.
Yeah, I would opt for the Tuesday because that's when we normally have our board meetings.
Tuesday, the 25th?
Or the 18th. I mean, whatever.
Oh,
Right.
fair point.
Wayne?
Just to add to what we said, it's not uncommon, unfortunately, for the city of New York to issue things for community board review that have deadlines that happen to fall in July. So we have over the last number of years had to vote on things in July, or else we would miss the opportunity to vote. But anything that's voted on at the committee of the whole then has to be ratified in September at the regularly scheduled meeting. My question is, will the committee of the whole be a hybrid meeting or an all virtual meeting?
Attendance is not required, so let's start there, right? For the purposes of
Understood.
quorum. I would have to ask Catherine exactly what format it would take place. I don't know yet. We haven't had that conversation, so I don't want to misspeak. But I do want to put out there that attendance is not required, so we won't have the same problems that we would have normally for like a general board meeting.
Right. I mean, I understand that, for the committee of the whole, whomever shows up, I mean, that by default establishes quorum. But if it's a virtual meeting, it makes it easier for folks who are at the Jersey Shore to participate.
Or hybrid. Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Darryl, I see your hand.
Yeah, sorry about that. I just want to clarify a point, though. People are saying attendance isn't required, which is kind of true, but it's also part of the bylaws. It is our duty as an appointed board member to attend special meetings as well as regular meetings. It's not counted if you're running for an officer position or the grand attendance, but I just wanted to clarify.
If I could comment on that.
I thought you might.
Unfortunately, the committee of the whole is in fact attendance optional because you are not required to attend meetings in the summer, and that supersedes the bylaws. So it is optional.
Thank you. So I think we then left that at the 17th or the 18th. The 25th did not seem to be popular. Steve did mention maybe doing the 18th. Do we feel strongly on either it being that Monday or Tuesday as a group?
I mean, I don't feel strongly, but it is the summer, so maybe, skipping Monday for folks who are taking long weekends
Right.
on Tuesday would work.
I think Tuesday is a better time. Folks either take that Friday off or they're on an extended weekend for a Monday off. So
Steve does make a compelling point that our public meetings are usually on a Tuesday, so.
Okay. All right, so let's go with Tuesday, the 18th. I will ask Catherine whether it's virtual, hybrid, or fully in person, and we'll get back to you on that. But for now, let's mark the calendar. Tuesday, the 18th would be the meeting for our committee of the whole. So with that, I think we can move on to the next section of the next part of this section, which is our May hybrid general meeting. And here we were hoping to get into a little bit of a discussion on ways that we can make sure we motivate so that all of us are present in person, and we also have the 26 members that we need present. My recommendation was that as chairs, we call our committee members and really push on them to be there in person. I know Catherine wants Simari, myself, Jumi, Barbara, and Michelle to also do some additional calls. So we are going to take that on as well as part of our strategy, but open to a very brief conversation on other strategies that you all think we may be able to use. As Ebenezer already mentioned, the office has been sending around as many emails as possible, reminding folks that it is in person. Jim, I see your hand.
Thank you. It turns out that basically the resolution we passed enabling hybrid meetings says that all meetings that aren't remote because of an emergency are in fact hybrid. There are no exclusively in-person meetings anymore, implying that there will always have to be a component so that people not physically present can observe the meeting. And as for the rules, what we're going to have to do with the rules for the meeting in July, that might be a little bit interesting, but in general, that's I don't believe we can hold purely in-person meetings anymore based upon the current. They changed the open meetings law, and now basically there are no in-person meetings. There are hybrid meetings, and in the case of emergency, there are remote the other kind of meetings. So that's the deal.
Okay.
And then the other thought I had, although it may not be in the least bit necessary, and I don't know whether we've actually sent it out, but we established rules for the hybrid meeting when we passed this resolution. So this resolution enabling hybrid meetings should go out to the entire board several times, because starting from 1 to 9 are the actual rules we will have to follow at that meeting. These are rules that we approved. So, and again, we made an effort, I think all of us, to make them as clear as possible. So there may not be any need for me to go over them tonight, but maybe at some point, we might want to do it at the first hybrid meeting just to remind everyone. But these rules have to go out, so everyone has to know so for example,
what's the date on that?
I don't remember because I didn't put the date, but we can find it. The thing is that you can't just stay home if you want to. There's a whole list of excuses, and sort of like excused absences, which are now excused absence, excuses to be remote also. You actually have to have a reason, and that reason has to be made public. Now, one of the reasons, for example, is caregiving. So if you have to stay home and take care of someone, there you are. You already have a reason. But that's that. There are these extra rules now. So just wanted to point that out.
Thank you. Steve, I see your hand was up next, and then I have Michelle and then Debbie. Steve?
Yes, two things. The emails that are being sent out from the board office, are we requesting that people RSVP to let us know if they plan to attend? And number two.
Yes, that has been included.
Okay, I don't remember seeing that. Okay, so do we already have a sense of how many people are saying they will be there?
Ebenezer, do you have a count? When I last spoke to Catherine about this, and I think it was about 2 weeks ago, we were at 19, but I could be wrong.
Oh, well, that's not bad. And
Ebenezer?
Yes, I need to check with Paola. She's the one helping us with that. I can get back to you tomorrow.
All right, so could the office call the people who have yet to RSVP?
People respond back to the email that we send.
I understand that, but if they haven't responded, could the office call them to find out if they're?
Well, we tried. This is the plan. Everybody gonna call. Yes,
Okay.
we can call, but remember, we need to prepare the meeting hybrid and also in person. So we need to print a lot of things. So we're busy, very busy there. That's why everybody need to be working on this matter. Okay, Steve. So we appreciate if you call your committee members. That will be a good help.
All right. Well, I can't guarantee that I'll be able to do that. So it would be good if the office would make some calls as well. Thank you.
Michelle?
Yeah, going off of what Steve was saying, do we have, can we get the list from the office of who hasn't RSVP'd or has RSVP'd, or we need to reach out to, so we don't reach out to folks who have already RSVP'd, yes or no?
Yeah, thank you. That's
Yes.
good.
Yes, tomorrow I can send that to the executive committee, okay? Who have the RSVP, and then we can concentrate to call the people that hasn't replied yet.
Yeah, I'm happy to help. Yep.
Great. Debbie and then Liz.
Thanks. I mean, I just want to say, I feel, I'm just going to echo what others have said, but like what Michelle just said, like I feel like we're all kind of doing the same thing. So I think it's a great suggestion for committee chairs who have the time to whip their own vote. But it would be helpful if we know who's already confirmed, but just to keep the focus on people who we don't have visibility on. And then so that, you know, because if we're using the boards, you guys, the chairs and secretaries, et cetera, to do the calling, and that let's just coordinate so we're not like calling the same people 3 times either, you know.
No, I think that's fair. So maybe Ebenezer can send out that list of folks that have not RSVP'd. And we will devise a plan as to like.
Right. And I'll just say for my committee, what I'll do is once I have that list, I will ask those that hadn't RSVP'd to let me know and the office know, and that those who already RSVP'd to just confirm that their RSVP hasn't changed.
Yeah, because even those that have RSVP'd, it doesn't hurt to get that extra call.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey,
yeah.
You RSVP'd, please show up.
Yeah, no, because that RSVP was a while ago.
Yeah. Is that it, Debbie? Can I move on to Liz now? Okay, Liz.
Hey, Barbara, you're on my committee. I'm not calling you. Show up to the meeting.
All righty. You're good. You're good, Liz. All right. Fantastic. So with that, we can move into the section of committee reports, and then we'll move over to task force reports. But we can start with traffic and transportation. Each chair gets, please note I get 3 minutes before cutoff. Each, you got 3 minutes, and then you can go into Q&A.
Thanks, Angel. We had no resos and it was a pretty light meeting. There was some just sort of not bureaucratic paperwork, but I had forgotten about that, but we as a board had to do a resolution related to a project to make the 168th Street 1 train accessible. And there was a reso because there needed to be what's called alienation at Mitchell Park for the construction to happen, some of which was temporary, but really is more about easements. But anyway, apparently there were typos in whatever was done, and you can't, it's actually legislation that facilitates this. So they just needed us to like sort of nod our heads about correcting typos. But it was a good reminder that while it'll be a while before that comes to fruition, the long dreamed about full accessibility to the one platform will become a reality in some amount of years. And then we just talked about a walkthrough we had done in the whole messy 158th Edward Morgan middle and upper roadways of Riverside Drive area, and then going all the way out towards 168th Street. So we talked about that, and that's it from me.
Great. I don't see any hands. Thank you, Debbie. So we can move over to business development. Joel.
Thank you, Angel.
I have a quick question for Debbie. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, just
Barbara,
real
you
quick,
have
Debbie.
2 minutes on the clock.
Mhm.
Half 30 seconds. Was reported today on New York One that 181st Street #1 station is the most polluted with metallic stuff in the environment. So just a heads up for that for your committee to follow up on. Just,
Yeah.
watch New York
Jim
One.
highlighted that to me today.
Yeah, and
Thank you, though.
also, any comment on the congestion pricing seems to be barreling through, how that will impact our community? I hope your committee is preparing some kind of awareness of that or what it looks like for us in terms of traffic and parking and everything becoming more congested up here and asthma and so forth.
Yeah, yeah, nothing planned, but we can talk about it offline. I don't want to.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
I mean, yeah.
All right, Joel, you have the floor now, 3 minutes.
Yeah, all right, thank you, Angel. Really quickly, so we had a great meeting, May 2nd. So first thing we spoke about is that we're implementing a new business spotlight in our committee. So at the very beginning of the meeting, we will be highlighting a business that's doing great things within our community. We had Peligro Sports come in. He couldn't access the Zoom for some reason, but we will invite him back. Secondly, we had May is Small Business Month. So I mentioned SBA is doing did a virtual summit, the 2nd and the 3rd, speaking on access to capital, on a wide range of subjects from access to capital to mobile connectivity. It was a few programs. It was a 2-day summit, so it was great. They're also continuing that every Wednesday, and I'll put the link on the chat so you guys can forward it to the members. Every Wednesday they'll be doing a new topic virtually. We also had last thing that we did, second to last thing that we did, we had the Verizon small grants that I mentioned. So the Dominican American Chamber of Commerce hosted an event detailing and step-by-step process of how to apply for this grant. So you can also check out the minutes for that. We also invited Con Edison to come into the meeting. They spoke about an incentive, kind of an initiative that they're doing to help small businesses kind of implement energy efficiency. Their energy efficiency upgrades to their small businesses. They're covering up to 50 to 60% of the projects that they come up with. They first assess what they could upgrade by lowering their energy bill, like lighting or refrigeration or HVAC systems. So you can also check that out in the meetings. There's a small PowerPoint presentation that you can look at. We also had the Innovative Lab for Yeshima University come in and speak about their program. The Innovative Lab is basically a team of students, consultants from Yeshiva University that's kind of helping startups or existing businesses create and launch their products. So they used to do it with startups of Israel that were trying to be introduced into the market for the US. Now they're doing it with small businesses that are here in the Heights. So they are looking for small businesses or businesses in general, startups, ideas. They're doing 10 businesses for the fall of 2023. So you can reach out to me and look at the minutes if you are interested in that. Lastly, I always like to mention this, Cloth, like I've mentioned before, is doing a new business development district, business improvement district. They're in the exploration stage from Broadway to 155th to 178th Street, on Broadway between 155th Street and 178th Street, and then on 168 from Broadway to Amsterdam. So please fill out that needs assessment. It's a vital part of performing this new bid. So with that, I finish with my report. Thanks, Angel.
Thanks, Joel. You have 2 hands, first from Isidro and then Debbie. Isidro, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. So Joel, I might be dropping by your committee to announce some major grants that the bid has received to power wash, clean the sidewalk, take your trip pits, just paint over graffitis among others. So I will do that perhaps next month, and I'll coordinate with you to see if that will be a possibility. Also, your committee might be called to bring some attention to an event that is going to happen on Dykeman. It's the night market, just like in Harlem, that they have on the West Side Highway. Beautiful project. So I think that you're going to be reached out to so that you can have an idea about what is coming for one night. And will be great for that particular area. So just keep an eye open because that will come on your way.
All right, thank you, Celia. Yeah, feel free to come on by, and our committee loves to hear about grants for our small businesses. Thanks.
Thank you.
Debbie, you have 2 minutes.
Thanks. Joel, you're inspiring in terms of how you've been approaching the agenda and creating all these relevant topics and trying out new things. This is more of a boring, well, whatever. As we all know, with our rent assistance programs for individuals in their homes, there's not commercial rent assistance, and there are a lot of storefronts that are that owe a lot of money, and there's really nowhere to go. And there is a small commercial lease assistance program, which is it's limited. I think it just supports you maybe in negotiating with landlords and kind of just getting a little support for going through something that's hard. And just like an idea, and I'm sure you've done something on this, but since programs do change from year to year and how they're funded and whether they have resources or they don't, that maybe if you haven't had them come in a while, to maybe have them come and just sort of say, like, is it really an active program or is it really tiny and they can only do a limited amount? And like, how do they promote it? Just an idea, because I see sometimes people at work and there's so little to offer them,
Yeah, Debbie. So back in February when we had with Carmen De La Rosa, we had a kind of a panel. This came up, and one of the things that we spoke about is that the SBS has a commercial lease negotiation program,
Right.
where you can, get the SBS to negotiate with the landlord to see if we can reduce
Right.
the rent. But
so you have talked about it recently, you're saying? Yeah.
yes, we have, but there's no active program. In the SBS has that program where we can negotiate leases. But in terms of like, the things that we have on the residential side, no. But if
No, I know that. I just wasn't sure of like how active the program with the negotiation was. Like, was that, so it still exists and people can still at least get that service?
Yes. And I'll get for next meeting, I'll get kind of an update now, and I'll get that to you so we can.
Yeah, no, just an idea. I mean, it sounds like you've been on it. It hit me the other day, meeting yet another person who I had nothing to offer.
Yeah, it's tough. I know that maybe that's something that our committee could come up with a resolution for. Kind of encourage one of these or the SBS to kind of come up with a program to assist small businesses. But nothing as of yet. But I will let you know if anything comes up.
Thank you.
And our last hand for Joel is from Maria. Maria,
Oh,
you have 2 minutes.
thank you, Debbie. I appreciate your compliment. Thanks.
Thank you, Angel. Really quick, Joel. So Wayne and Wayne will probably touch on this in the land use report. We are working on a response to Manhattan Borough President's Housing Manhattanites project. And I haven't formally emailed you, but just so you know, but it's also on the record. And so part of what we're planning to do is kind of lead a series of walking tours throughout the neighborhood, and it's to identify empty land, kind of lots that could be used for affordable housing as part of what was outlined in the MBPO's report. And part of our discussion, what we thought would be really neat is through that, these would be kind of open walks for the community through that is possibly invite and engage some of our local business members. And we can kind of talk offline exactly what that looks like. Maybe it's, we can highlight something on their menu and kind of people can stop by and have a coffee. But again, just wanted to put that on the record for you, and Wayne and I can follow up, and we'll also follow up with UEC though as well in regards to your kind of engaging local businesses on something like this. Thanks.
Thank you, Mario. Yeah, I'm more than willing to do some tours and see if anybody in the committee can do that. So just remind me, it's called the Manhattan Nights, and we can talk offline, but it's Manhattan Nights, right?
Correct. I'll send you more information because I'm pulling something together for what we're planning to do, but would certainly appreciate your insight on some of that, yours and the committees.
Yeah, for clarity, it's Housing Manhattan Nights.
Housing. Okay, thank you. And I look forward to it. Yeah, for sure. Thank you.
Yep.
Liz, you'll be the very last hand I'm taking for Joel here.
Thank you. Joel, I just want to give you a heads up. I'm going to be connecting you in an email with Marco Shalma, who's the head of he's the guy who runs the Bronx Night Market, the Uptown Night Market, and the Queens Night Market. And he is looking to do the New York Latin Food Festival in September. And he just wanted to connect with you. So I wanted to give you a heads up. He's great. The events are great. Super stoked to find out what he's got in mind.
Yes, that would be great. I've heard of that before. So I'm glad. He's looking forward to my inbox being nice and full. So
thanks so much.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Joel. To keep us moving, next we have land use. Wayne, you've got 3 minutes on the floor.
Thank you, Angel. So we had 3 basic agenda items for the May meeting. First, we were introduced to our new city planning, liaison, that is Audrey Wachs, and she is the new planner for community boards 9 and 12. And so she started working with us only a few weeks ago. I shared with her some of the information, some of the resolutions we've passed over the last few years on planning and zoning issues. And at the June meeting, she will be joining us again because the Department of City Planning is presenting a zoning text amendment that we need to consider and vote on. I would point out that probably in the last half dozen years or so, we have not had a consistent city planning rep, a consistent planner. There have been a number of changes, and that is, I think, in stark contrast to years ago when we had one person who worked with us for several years and understood the history of the things that the board and the committee have discussed. So I think it's a little bit of an issue, something that we need to try to get a handle on, because I don't think it's beneficial if every year and a half or two we're working with a new person, because then we're bringing them back up to speed on the things that we've discussed, the issues that are of concern. But in any event, that was one of the first items. The second item was consideration of the proposal by the Landmarks Preservation Commission to designate 935 St. Nicholas Avenue as an individual landmark. That building, 935, is known as the Duke Ellington Building, and it's being considered for both architectural and cultural significance. It's a good example of sort of early 20th century Gothic revival apartment architecture, but it also was the home of Duke Ellington for about 30 years, as well as the home of Noble Cecil for about 30 years. And the Landmarks Preservation Commission points out that they identified it through a survey that they've conducted of sites in Harlem and citywide that are of significance and importance to the African American community. And while I think we applaud them for doing that, I will point out that 935 St. Nicholas has been on the National Register of Historic Buildings for nearly 50 years. And it has taken, Landmark's half a century to catch up. And finally, as Marielle said, we further discussed the borough president's Housing Manhattanites plan. And one of the things that came out of that is instead of trying to examine the proposed sites on the map, to structure a series of walking tours so that we can see the sites that were in the plan, as well as some of the other sites that we've identified. And that's a way of not only engaging the committees, because it's now Land Use and Housing and Human Services, but also members of the community. And one of the models is the walking tour that Gail Brewer did last year of sites in the Inwood area. And I think that's also in part where the idea of engaging businesses, because it was an all afternoon tour. And at some point we stopped and had lunch at a spot. And so if that's a planned activity for each of these walking tours, that would be a way of also, having an opportunity to stop and sort of digest and discuss the sites we've just seen.
Thank you, Wayne. You have one hand from Steve. Steve, you have 2 minutes.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned about whether or not the walking tour is really going to be effective, because we're talking about so many different sites spread out all over the community. Ebenezer, do you remember some years ago, we were able to get a bus to take members of the community board around? I forget what we were checking on and what we were doing that day, but can you remember where we got that bus from?
I don't recall, Steve, maybe before my time.
No, it's not before your time.
No. Do you remember the year? Maybe it was Parks Department?
No, it wasn't the Parks Department.
No, well, I need to look at, right now, it doesn't come to my mind. I don't recall. Maybe
All right.
Liz may remember. She remembered many things.
All right, let me check with either Martin Collins or Ziad. Maybe it was while one of them was the chair.
Yeah, so, but just to be, to back up, I mean, one of the things we pointed out is, the sites are located throughout the district, so it would not make sense to try to do that in one sitting or in one walking tour, which is why, as you recall, I don't recall if you were at the May meeting, Steve, we discussed breaking it into 2 or 3 walking tours. So, I mean, if we have access to a vehicle, it need not be a bus, it could be a minivan, but walking from, 155th to 170th on Broadway is not, an excessive thing to do.
No,
I don't think that anyone is going to object if we have access to a vehicle, but, the idea of the weather's cooperating, and, you could look at a map and really not understand what you're looking at. Seeing the sites, in person is the idea of what we want to get to.
No, I agree. I would like to see a lot of the sites firsthand, as I said at the meeting, which I did attend. But I don't know whether we can really expect people to come out on 3 Saturdays in a row for something like this. But so if we could possibly do it all in one day by virtue of having a vehicle, I think that would be beneficial.
Thanks, Steve. Seeing no other hands, I think we can move on to the next committee chair report. That is Isidro Medina with licensing. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. So we had a really great meeting last that's what happens with censors. So we had a great meeting. We had 17 applicants. Happy to see that the CEO from the 34th precinct was present, CEO Castillo. He gave us some recommendations on some issues that are affecting some of our nightlife here. And on that note, there was one area that the committee didn't feel comfortable in approving. So you see that on the resolutions and on the minutes. Another applicant was rejected because of a very serious health concern. And then about 6 of the applications were withdrawn either at the meeting or prior to. Nothing more than that. It was a very easy meeting. And I really have to thank Anthony Biola for taking on the leadership to write the minutes. Simari will miss you. But really great meeting overall. And that's basically all on my part. Any questions?
Sure. You have one hand. Liz, you have 2 minutes.
Yeah, can you just give me an update on what's the status with the Cloisters Grill and their applications?
I will have to check when they're due for renewal. If they are coming back in June, I'll let you know beforehand. But
Okay.
as I spoke with you earlier, I might drop by during the weekend to check the place, the venue. And before I do that, I'm going to check out to make sure that I understand the stipulations, hours of operations before I go there. So we will have all the tools to make sure that, you know, they stay in place as they should.
Super, thank you.
Sure.
Seeing no other hands, I'll move on to the next committee chair. That will be Eliasad for public safety. 3 minutes on the floor.
Angel, the rest of you. I was absent on that day, but the meeting was extremely well facilitated by our rabbi. And I'm going to refer you to the minutes so that you can look at something that we didn't know about our rabbi. He's excellent facilitating skills. So I invite you all to look at the minutes. Thank you, Angel, and good night to the rest of you.
Thank you, Elisa. You actually do have one hand from Steve Simon. Steve, you have 2 minutes.
Yeah, hi, Eliezer, as you probably know, we suffered another tragic fire on 190th Street recently with 4 people who died from a fire evidently caused by lithium-ion batteries. Again, I'm not sure what we can do about this, but we need to do something. And I think we should talk again to the fire department to see what they may advise, what we can do to get the word out to warn people about the danger of these batteries.
Elisa, do we have you? Well, I hear you, Steve, and I do agree that we need to do something about this. I'll make sure to flag it for the chair and the notes that I'm putting together for my conversation with her after this meeting.
Angel, if I could quickly say something about that, I've actually been in communication with Eliasad about this. We're trying to host a joint meeting in regards to the Liberistas bill that Carmen de la Rosa has introduced. And they're trying to create, because this is also a part of business development, create out of old newsstands, battery charging stations. And it's in the works. We're trying to create a resolution where we can support this initiative because instead of charging it at home, you can charge it at one of these stations. But on the business development side, we will we will get an update soon. I'm going to reach out to Carmen de la Rosa's office to see if we could get an update on the Liberistas bill. So.
Thanks, Joel. Okay. I see no other hands. We will move on to the next report. Concerns of the Aging by Mary. I don't see Mary on the call today, though. So I'm going to say everyone refer to the minutes on that one. With that, we can move on to Mariel on Housing and Human Services.
Thank you, Angel. Good evening, everyone. I'll get my camera on so you can see me at least. All right, there we go. I do exist. I do have a face, I promise.
Nope, we want to see the baby.
I know it's not about me anymore. She's sleeping, although she might wake up later. But anyway, good evening, everyone. Thank you, Angel. Just really quickly in terms of what we discussed last month, and then I'll also like to share with all of you a resolution that I would like to put forward for consideration to the executive committee, and I'll come to that in a moment. But in terms of last month's meeting, we actually had a really helpful discussion. It was a very robust meeting, very long meeting, but a good one. We first started with a presentation by one of the assistant commissioners from the New York City Department of Veteran Services. And so that was really good to have. And, you know, she kind of clarified that they themselves do not provide services, but a lot of what they do is kind of liaise with veterans and community-based organizations and the Department of the VA and ensuring that veterans across New York City are receiving the services that they need. And so that was a really kind of fruitful discussion, and looking forward to building on that relationship with that office. We also had Carmen de la Rosa's office join us on 2 points that the committee has been working on. One is around the Rent Guidelines Board. So as you know, the Rent Guidelines Board met earlier this month. They've put forward, the ranges for 1 year and 2 year rent stabilized leases. And actually, Carmen de la Rosa is putting forward legislation on, an intro, but also a resolution on actually a rent rollback. And so that's what we will be putting forward as the committee. And so that'll be kind of for everyone's attention at the general meeting there. So instead of actually supporting what the Rent Guidelines Board is asking for due to the affordability crisis, due to, all the things that we know that we were seeing happening, we're actually calling for a rent rollback. And then the second resolution that will be coming forward from our committee will be around the right to counsel. And so this is supporting kind of legislation that's coming out of Shana Abreu's office, and a big shout out to Jay from the committee who kind of took the initiative to put it together and actually did pretty good, I think, for kind of a first time resolution. And so that will be going forward for consideration. In terms of our June meeting, we will have a presentation by BRC on the shelter that they're meant to build. So if you recall, this is the site that, when they were starting to break ground, they found that actually it was a mass burial site. And they kind of did a series of listening tours and listening circles around how to best commemorate and acknowledge some of that history. And so my understanding is that now they're getting ready to start kind of construction. So they'll be joining us at the June meeting. We're also meant to have a presentation from Palante. So it'll be good to kind of have them as well to give us updates on some of the work that they're doing. So we've been busy, all good things, but busy. And then the last thing I just recall from the May meeting, just really quickly, is around HPD, which we'll kind of pick up in June as well. HPD has a program for first-time homeowners. And so there was a resolution that was put forward by Community Board 8, I believe. And a couple of other community board area have also kind of signed on to some of this. And it's kind of, talking about reducing some of the barriers that currently exist. So I believe right now it's like $800 to access an application. There's a kind of like a lot of barriers that are there, but aren't necessarily friendly to first-time homeowners. So busy, but all good work. And then I'll take Steve's question, Angel.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Maria, let's do questions first, and then I'll give you 2 minutes to do the resolution and then
okay,
the back and forth on that. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you, Steve.
Yeah, Mario, did you see the article I sent you about HPD releasing a list of distressed buildings? I'm wondering whether we already have that list and if we know which buildings in our district are on it, and then and more importantly, what HPD is doing to remedy the conditions in those buildings.
I have not seen that email, but I know last year, if you could just resend it. I've been having like something weird with my email, like I'm getting some emails and others I'm not, so please resend. But I do know that normally this is around the time that they release that. What I will say is January, we had someone from HPD's alternate enforcement program join us. And so we're actually due for a follow-up conversation, and that could certainly be one. And part of that conversation, was initiated, because of that list last year. And so there were a couple of buildings on that list last year that were on the alternate enforcement programs, kind of list, so to speak. But yeah, certainly something for us to look into. Thank you.
All right, very good.
I'll give myself 2 minutes on the clock, and it's in relationship to the BRC shelter. the housing shelter. I know that they presented to the board a number of years back. I can't exactly remember when it was. And I know that the big focus at that time was around the burial ground, right? And how they were going to work with the Dykeman Farmhouse to really memorialize that. But I have now recently heard rumblings from various groups and different stakeholders about the concerns of it being an all-male housing shelter, and it being directly behind a school. So I just want to put that on your radar, that may be coming down your way, that there are concerns about, you know, the demographic or the group of people that the shelter is looking to support specifically.
Okay, that's helpful. And I think, you know, obviously, when they came to the committee, I think it was like 2021 or something. And yeah, exactly. The conversations were mainly around that and not necessarily, you know, the demographics of, you know, the people that would be living in the shelters and receiving the services. And so that's kind of what the June meeting is meant to do. I would certainly encourage you to, you know, share that they will be at the meeting, to, you know, to kind of facilitate a constructive dialogue on how we can work together on this.
So, Liz, 2 minutes on the clock for you.
Thanks. I just want to, as someone who was obviously very involved in the conversations with BRC, more on the perspective of the cultural affairs piece related to the burial grounds. You know, we didn't talk a lot about what the services were that were being offered, but they were always very clear that these would be services for single men, that this was not a women's shelter, this was not a family shelter, this was a single men's shelter. There are many stakeholders who have been represented in those conversations around the burial grounds, where there was ancillary sort of, by the way, mention and conversation about it being a men's shelter. And that did include the school, some residents, local churches. So, you know, I understand that people have sort of misgivings and concerns in the way that we are always concerned about, like, homeless people and those people. But this is not a surprise. I also want to just put out there that this is, you know, we keep on having issues with homelessness in this community and elsewhere in the city. And because this is an end of the line community in terms of the A train and 207th Street, we kind of have an extra burden of the city's homeless population. So providing homeless services, we're always screaming as a community, do something, do something. And now that something is being done, it feels ironic in the worst possible way that people are saying, oh no, we don't want this. Like literally, this is what we've been asking for. And the overwhelming majority of the street homeless population are men of color. So for a former African-American and slave burial ground to be put into service to help a segment of the population who were materially harmed by slavery in America, it just feels appropriate. So, you know, I will try my best to attend this meeting and speak in favor of this shelter and that organization. But yeah, it's a little frustrating to me that for a community that is as rightfully up in arms about needing to do something to serve homeless people and take care of what's a serious problem in our community, now folks are complaining like they don't want that. I don't get how that works.
Thank you.
I see Joel has his hand. So Joel, you get 2 minutes.
Yeah, go ahead, Joel.
Hey, Maria. So I just wanted to quickly mention, I don't think anything's happening in our neighborhood about the migrants. I know they are setting up some things in Brooklyn, and I think in a school in Staten Island. Have you heard anything that's happening here in Washington Heights for the migrants?
I have not heard, but I would be surprised if nothing isn't happening. And so It's a matter of me kind of doing my due diligence as well as the committee and finding out. But it looks like Liz is aware of something, and possibly
Simon too.
Steve.
Yeah.
Yeah, there have been a number of the CBOs have been doing work supporting migrants, a lot of local mutual aid around supporting migrants, but also that hotel on 181st Street, not the new one, but the one that's on the north side of 181st Street, just short of Amsterdam.
The Henny.
Yes, the Henny Hotel. That hotel, I mean, I haven't checked in with them recently, but that hotel had been housing migrants since they first started coming to the GWB last summer. And I believe that they still are doing that. And for like a long time, I was working with local mutual aid, collecting, it was mostly families there, collecting, you know, stuff for pregnant moms, new babies. We were bringing food over there. So there has been, you know, check with like DWDC and NIMIC, and also the councilwoman's office has been very active with the city's Office of Immigrant Affairs. And I know that when we had our free store at the Armory on, when Uptown Wagon did our free store at the Armory on Friday, we had a significant showing of migrant families, and we're able to get them like a lot of stuff.
Thanks, Liz. I mean, something for Joelle, your awareness, but also for everyone else is what we've been trying to do with the committee is invite a lot of these CBOs. As you can imagine, the remit of housing and human services is incredibly broad, and there's so much there. And so what we've been trying to do is kind of, you know, establish these relationships with these CBOs, you know, that are working on a lot of these issues. So certainly one for us to kind of continue to keep our eye on things. I don't think I see other questions.
Yeah, you don't have any other hands, Maria. What I was going to say was maybe I'll give you 2 minutes on the floor to present that resolution that you mentioned. And then we can do a very quick back and forth on that if folks want to see any changes to what you present.
Sounds
so
good.
If you can give her 2 minutes.
Sure. And if you could kindly allow me permission to share my screen. And then I can do that. So colleagues, I was very disturbed by the incident, the killing of Jordan Neely. From a personal perspective, I'll share that I felt that it was something that could have been avoided if there were better services in place in New York City and in so many ones. I think this was a
Maria, we're losing you. We can't hear you clearly. Maybe you want to turn off the video. Yeah.
Yep. Is that better now?
Yep. And
Okay,
in the meantime, Simati or Ebenezer, you can give her access to share screen because she's going to need to share screen.
Yeah, she's a co-host now, Ebenezer.
Okay. Great,
yes.
There you go.
Colleagues have kindly shared. Can you hear me now?
Yes, perfectly clear.
Okay. So what this is here is a draft. And when I say draft, it's very draft in that I did not have enough time to kind of really pull it together. And so certainly welcome friendly amendments. But what I would like us to, as a community board.
Could you make it larger?
Yes, I can. And happy to kind of share it around as well. Because I recognize that, again, this is a very rough draft and will probably need several eyes and a couple of edits as well. And so certainly welcome to your thoughts. So for me, the impact of the housing crisis, the economic crisis, mental health, as well as public safety, a lot of these different issues, kind of the nexus of these, the intersectionality of these, I think the unfortunate incident on May 1st is an example of what happens when we fail New Yorkers. And so for me, I think it's coming to the executive committee because obviously there's a lot of overlap on a lot of the work that we all do. And so I'll read here. Again, there's some bits and pieces that I have not finalized and would certainly welcome your feedback, but I also want to be cognizant of time. So happy to accept friendly amendments and continue to work with you all offline. So here, whereas the unfortunate but avoidable killing of Jordan Neely on May 1st, 2023 highlights the intersectionality of the housing, mental health, economic, and public safety crises and its impact on New Yorkers. Whereas policies that criminalize homelessness and mental illness do not address the root causes of the affordability crisis, nor the public health crisis impacting New Yorkers, especially since the pandemic. Again, I probably need to edit it, but I just want to put that caveat out there again. Whereas the social safety net available has, for New Yorkers, I should probably put, has deteriorated due to inadequate policies, budget cuts, and even high vacancy rates across the New York City agencies, leading to loss of services, even evictions for New Yorkers. The reason why I put a little bit here about the vacancy rates is because during our Housing and Human Services meeting, where we had Kiana from Councilor De La Rosa's office, was talking really about the impact that it's having. It's over 20% across the New York City agencies, and that's huge. You have things, people that are unable to access social services because literally there's no one there to help process it. And so that's a big problem. Whereas the number of homeless people sleeping in New York City, DHS obviously was spelled out, and HPD shelters in February 2023 was 74,762. And this figure was from the Coalition for the Homeless, but there is an updated figure that Kiana provided me that I need to update. Okay, thank you, Simati. I'll be really quick. Whereas 74,762 represent everyday New Yorkers facing homelessness and does not include New Yorkers who may not be captured in the statistics, but are still people in need. And then there's a little bit here, because it's a wide issue. I would certainly welcome your thoughts on bits and pieces that I should include. Let's do that. Whereas Community Board 12 welcomes ongoing efforts to address the Manhattan Borough President Mark Levine's policy on identifying empty lots for affordable housing sites. There's a little bit here about, the increase in the state budget for mental health services. It goes on. There's obviously bits that I have not finished, but in terms of the whereas, it's the therefore be it resolved. One would be on calling on HRA to hire people and kind of reduce some of those vacancies that are causing people to slip through the cracks. And I think the second one could be, so there's a coordinated behavioral health task force, which involves a series of city agencies that they meet apparently on a regular basis to address kind of high need homeless New Yorkers. And apparently Jordan Neely was on that list. And so I wonder if there's kind of a call for community boards for there to be some kind of open forum on about how we can help support or at least hear from them, and how to better address some of these issues. A lot there. Recognize the time is late, but certainly welcome your thoughts and happy to take it offline as well. Thank you.
So you have two hands, Maria. One is from Barbara, the other one is from Steve. Barbara, you have 2 minutes.
I wanted to make a comment following what Liz had said before about the shelter that's proposed over by the school. I just wanted to say, I think that we should maybe propose, see, the problem is that this shelter, which when Eliezer and when had looked at it last year, it's focusing on men who've been incarcerated, drug addicted, other kinds of things. And if we could again propose possibly that it would be for families, women and children who've been evicted, evicted by fire, evicted domestic violence, like we did a couple of years ago with the shelter that's now functioning very well at 178th and Audubon. We've had many, many evictions in the community. And if the shelter could instead focus on people who, families who've been evicted from the community, I think then that would be okay with the school and okay with the community. The problem is that it's being designed as a shelter for very high risk people in not such a great location.
Thank you, Barbara. I encourage you to participate in that next committee meeting. Thank you.
Okay.
Steve?
Yes, I want to speak on the resolution. First of all, I want to commend Marielle for doing this and responding to the killing of Jordan Neely and suggesting that the community board take a position. I would like to suggest that when we mention the number of homeless people in the shelters at close to 75,000, that we at least acknowledge that a fair number of them are migrants who have come into the city, which is significantly increased the number. And secondly, the state budget contains 1 billion with a B for mental health services, not just 1 million. And I do want to also thank you for including the reference to the reopening of the 30-bed psych unit at the Allen Hospital. But I don't feel as though this resolution is in a form that is ready to be voted on. So I would suggest that you continue to work on it, and I would be willing to assist in whatever way I can, and bring it back to your committee meeting and have the Housing and Human Services Committee vote on the resolution, and then bring it before the full board in June.
So I think if I understood what Maria was looking for here specifically, Steve, is the fact that there are many different committees that this would fall under, right? We're talking about mental health, we're talking about housing, we're talking about public safety. And so she wanted it to be presented as an executive committee resolution to the general board.
Well, then I would suggest that it come before the executive committee in June as a fully formed resolution, because at this point, I'm not really sure what I'm voting on.
Thank you. Got it.
Can I respond to
Yep.
Steve?
Mhm.
Thank you, Steve, for your comments. Certainly recognize that it needs some work. As I mentioned, it's a little hard working a 60-hour job and managing 2 kids and everything else. But yeah, I'm okay with that. But I also recognize the importance of timeliness with some of this. But happy to entertain that suggestion, but would certainly welcome the thoughts of others as well.
Yeah, let's hear from others real quick, Maria, on that one. Debbie, and then I see Liz's hand. Debbie.
Yeah, I mean, this is just sort of building on some of what Steve said. I also think there's too much going on here, and that, you know, there's mental health stuff, there's homeless stuff, I like the idea of doing something because of, as you've eloquently put, Marielle, the intersectionality of all this stuff. However, you know, we still are just a community board, and there's a lot, and then throwing the Allen beds, like there's too much going on. And I think, you know, if it needs to divide into 2 things, and so be it. I also, and this is just a personal bias, again, we're community board, we're supposed to be surfacing issues that are sort of specific, not unique, but specific to CB12. And then I don't like resos that sort of go to policy, because we're not a policy making. If we want different policy, we elect a different mayor, or we advocate with our city council member who's in charge of legislation. So just, I think also kind of planting it and where where our role resides in all these things. I mean, I also say, like, this issue of hiring has been dramatically bad. And nobody has been lamenting and ranting about how the city is not functioning right now. And the human services crisis is like so massive. But, you know, at the same time, and I think we're promoting it through CB12, I mean, all the city agencies are doing hiring halls. We have one announced from Mark Levine right now for HRA hiring hall, May 30. So they don't need to hear from us that it's a crisis and they need to start hiring people on the double. But, or if we do think that there's a problem, then let's speak about it precisely. If we like, you know what I mean? Like it does need to drill down to sort of what is the essence of the issue. But even recognizing the intersectionality of all these, of some of these problems and how they build on each other, there's still, I think this might, there's probably 2 solid resolutions at minimum in here. And I think it is critical, like urgent stuff, but it's not going to be ready. I don't see it as being baked enough for May.
Maria, did you want to respond or would you like for me to go to your
Yes, I can respond. Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks, Debbie.
Before you do, can you
comments.
just scroll it down so I can read the rest?
Sure. And again, like I was very clear that it is not ready. And so I was very obvious about that. And I recognize that. To your point, Debbie, around there being a lot, I guess it's something that I struggled with because obviously it is a lot. And so again, would certainly appreciate the thoughts from all of you in terms of what would be kind of those, 1 or 2 key sentences on these issues. Obviously, there's only so much. I'm not trying to, draft like, 30-page resolution because we could go on and on and on. As it relates to vacancy rates, that is something that actually the committee is working with Carmen de la Rosa's office on. So that's something that hopefully in the near future we'll have kind of more concrete as in terms of what that looks like. I don't think this is calling for, at least from my perspective, that it's calling for kind of like, policy. I mean, the be it resolves are around just asking for an open forum with the task force and calling, here a little bit that I did not finish on, kind of the hiring bit. Obviously, your point is valid around, yes, all of these fairs are happening and being a bit more specific on what, maybe it's reducing the time frame that it takes to onboard people. My understanding that it takes several months, providing, better benefits for city workers or, things like that, things that, in terms of recruitment and retention, that could help staff these agencies. But again, one for us to pick up offline. I'm not sure who was the next.
So I had a hand from Liz, then I had a hand from Jim. Wayne, you're going to be the last hand on this so that in the interest of time, we can keep things moving forward. Liz?
Thanks. Yes, this is sort of a big thing, but it does impact, it does cross multiple committees. So it does make sense to bring it forth from here. While I agree it's not quite baked, I feel like if we can get agreement on what's the basic thing of it that we're trying to get at, we can neaten up the language in time to bring it to the floor as a more, a better articulated vision. I frequently, at my committee, I don't generally write the actual resolution in the committee. I just get a very clear agreement on what are the salient points that we want to make in the whereases and what are the things that we are resolving to do or ask for or call on somebody to support or oppose. I think understanding the murder of Jordan Nealing as an intersectional problem as described here is very much the meat and potatoes of what community boards do. It's not just a policy thing, it's a calling on direct funding for the kinds of things, the underfunding of which and the not doing of which result in these and other kinds of community safety problems. So I think the end does kind of get a little lost in the weeds, but I think we've all written things that sort of went off the rails. So if you could scroll down again a little bit, because I don't actually control this document. I think that we, like the Parks and Cultural Affairs Committee is, has a reso, which I'll describe later, but that calls on the budget to include 1% for parks and 1% for arts. So to push out in the May meeting, a reso saying these are broadly our priorities feels appropriate to me. And I would reference from our budget priorities some of the things that we have called for in terms of housing, in terms of jobs, in terms of mental health, and just generally call on the city to fund these things.
Time is up here, Liz. In the interest of time, so we can keep the meeting moving forward, Maria, let's just hear out from Jim and Wayne. Debbie, I already gave you the floor, so I'm just gonna take these two, and then we can wrap this up. Jim?
Yep, works for me.
Thank you. To begin with, I disagree with my dear colleague Debbie. If this board wants to talk about policy, it talks about policy. There's no such restriction. The other thing is that insofar as this resolution should come from us sooner rather than later, one way of working around the problem is this, assuming that, you know, it's gotten into shape by the general meeting, it could be presented as new business at the general meeting and voted on there by that process. The other thing is that if in fact, you know, as this is being drafted, there's a need for, you know, it should be separated in two resolutions. There's nothing wrong with our voting on two resolutions. But I think, you know, that from my point of view, although there are all these issues, the real issue, and it's just tragic, and it's true not of New York, which is probably trying harder than many other places in the country. The homeless population in this country needs to be served properly. And if they're not, then not only do you get tragedies like this, but you get tragedies where homeless people act out and do harm themselves. So I think, you know, that general issue of, you know, and again, obviously, no one should die unnecessarily whatsoever. But I think this situation just is a loud cry that we should jump on the bandwagon of, about how not just the city, which of course we're, you know, directly, you know, we're supposed to direct our, you know, words to them, which is true. But in general, how the homeless population really has to be treated. Otherwise, all of us are at peril, you know, including the tragic homeless people. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Wayne, you'll have the last say here.
Yeah, so Mariel, thank you for taking this on. My suggestion is if you were to circulate it via email to the executive committee and charge everyone who has, you know, comments to, you know, track them in and provide them, that would be helpful and useful, using Jim's approach of having something ready to present at the general meeting, you know, as new business. I too completely disagree with this notion that we're only a community board and we can't comment on X, Y, or Z. It is the role and the obligation, in my opinion, of the community board to share intelligent recommendation comments on, you know, any range of things that impact life in the city. And we do not live in bubbles where if something is happening in theory in another community board, it has no impact on us because that's, you know, on the other side of the line. So I think it is perfectly appropriate for us to craft a resolution of this nature. I think we do need to tighten it up. And I think there are enough people on this executive committee with experience in writing and editing resolutions that we can work with you to get that done.
Thank you, Wayne. Marietta, if you want, so we can wrap
Can
up
I
the
come-
conversation and let us know what steps you'd like to take.
Sure. So thank you everyone for your helpful comments. Really appreciated. Yes, and thank you, Jim, for letting us know of that option, as you mentioned, to share via email. And I'll do that this evening. And I'll ask for all of you colleagues to please, as it relates to your committees, but also your putting resolution.
You're fading.
Yeah, we're losing you again, Maria.
Appreciate your thoughts and it can be presented at the. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Oh no, can you hear me now?
Yes, we
Okay,
can hear
so
you now.
I was just saying thank you. Okay, just saying thank you to everyone for their comments. I would like to take the approach that Jim suggested, which would be for me to email this evening to all of you, and would certainly welcome your thoughts and your comments in it, and we can work on it, that way, so that it can be ready for to be presented at the general meeting in later this month. Thank you.
So
Thank you, Maria, and thank you everyone for your thoughtful,
it would
for
then be.
this very thoughtful conversation and discourse. Liz, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, I just want to say that I really appreciate that even though it's late, we're willing to have these hard conversations that bridge multiple committees, because that feels very much like what we really should be doing on the community board. I know that's why I signed up. So thank you.
I agree. Thank you, Liz. All righty. We next have Steve Simon with Health and Environment. Steve, you have 3 minutes on the floor.
Yeah, could I just get a bit of clarification? Did we just decide that this resolution is coming before the general meeting under new business?
Yes, that is the course of action that it's going to take.
All right, very good. So,
assuming it's ready.
Yes.
Right. Well, okay, we're not voting on it tonight. Okay.
No.
At the Health and Environment Committee meeting on May the 4th, we had two presentations. One was an update on the city's composting program from the Department of Sanitation in Manhattan. It's the plan is to have it go into full effect in October of next year, 2024. And we also had a presentation on cancer clinical trials at the medical center. As soon as I get these PowerPoint presentations, I will share them with members of the board. In terms of COVID, although apparently the federal government and others feel as though the emergency no longer exists, the fact is that people are still suffering from COVID. The last report I was able to glean from the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene website showed that there were 13 new cases in our district as of the week ending May the 1st. And at my committee meeting, Julio Batista reported that there were 29 cases in the hospital's 3 facilities in our district as of that date, at the Milstein Pavilion, at the Allen Hospital, and at the Children's Hospital. So it hasn't quite disappeared. There's no news about the restoration of the 30 beds, the 30 psych beds at the Allen Hospital. All we're being told at this point is that the hospital is in discussion with the state as to how and where to restore those beds. That they have a problem maybe with staffing and with being able to restore the beds promptly. But there was a April 1st. The state did indicate that they wanted all the beds in all the hospitals that had taken them offline. They wanted them restored by April the 1st, and we have certainly passed that date. Julio also reported that the plan to put up a new building on Broadway between 169th and 170th Streets. Apparently that plan is being reconsidered as to what should go into that building. He's hoping to have a decision to report back to us in the next 2 months. And he also told us that the hospital is looking for a new restaurant to take over the Coogan space, which from my point of view, couldn't happen soon enough. In terms of that mention earlier about the story that came out about, I think Barbara brought it up, about pollution in the subway stations. It's not just at 181st Street. The story also indicated high levels of pollution at 168th Street. Both stations, of course, are very deep underground stations. My plan, Debbie, was to reach out to DEP and possibly also to state DEC to see if they confirm that this report from NYU is accurate or is troublesome, and whether or not the city or state environmental protection agencies are planning to take any action in this regard. Finally, I'm having trouble copying the chat, and there's particular information that Michelle posted for me in the chat. I wonder whether Ebenezer or somebody can copy it for me and send it to me tomorrow or later tonight.
There's a file that, yeah, if you ask the office staff in the morning, they can forward you the TXT file with all the chat information.
All right, so we are automatically saving it?
Yeah,
Okay, very good.
the Q&A saves, the chat saves, and the attendance saves.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yep.
Are you all set there, Steve? Because
Yeah, my report is done.
Okay, wonderful. Isidro, your hand is up. You have 2 minutes to ask questions.
Thank you, Chair. And Steve, my question was related to this report that came out on this study made on the station of 181 and 168th Street. We have over 3 million people going through the 181 station, and on average, about 7 to 8 million people going through 168. My question to you is, are we going to wait until we get some response from the DEP or the related agencies, or is the community board going to plan something for this very serious issues? We feel that our residents that come and go through to work using this the mass transit that is not safe and putting our residents at risk is something that should be addressed by this community board in the future.
Well, I agree. That's why I think we need to gather as much information as we can, as quickly as we can. And then not just leave it up to the MTA. I would like to hear from the environmental authorities who are maybe more expert in determining whether this particular element identified by the NYU report, the extent to which it is a hazard and what should be done to remedy it.
Do you think it will be a possibility to perhaps invite those researchers to come over in the future to explain the findings so we can have a thorough understanding about this problem?
I think that's an excellent idea. Yes. Yeah, let me talk to Debbie as to how she wants to handle that, but I think they should definitely come to either my committee or hers or to both of them. Well, but we need, there was all I saw, maybe you saw something else. All I saw was a relatively brief article in the New York Post. There's got to be more information available about this report that came out of NYU.
And there is, if you can follow the link, there is a lot of information there.
All right, I'll look for it. And I'll stay in touch with you on this because I realize this is pretty important for the bid.
Thank you.
You have another hand by Jim. Jim, you have 2 minutes on the floor.
Thank you. It's important, I think, to keep in mind that the article was in the New York Post, which is not, the world's greatest expert on anything. The main thing I just want to point out, and I'm not trying to minimize the situation, but people have been using that station for the last 100 years. And steel dust, which is very well known throughout the world, is true, exists in every subway system in the world. So I think we should definitely pay attention to this, but I don't believe it's the sort of thing that there's this hysterical problem and people are dropping dead all the time from steel dust because, again, they've been breathing it for 100 years. And I Googled it, and basically you don't want to breathe metallic dust, obviously, because it's not good for your lungs. But it doesn't seem, based upon my first glance, that it's a particular carcinogen or anything. So I think definitely we should move forward, but let's not, go crazy, especially, and again, I don't want to denigrate NYU. In fact, I'll try to see the study myself, but I do take with a very big grain of salt anything that's in the New York Post. Thank you.
Well, again, if I could comment, I would generally agree with you if the report was simply generated by the New York Post, but it does come from a reputable university, and And I have to believe that there may be something to it. And then maybe the issue here is trying to get better ventilation in both of those stations because they are so deep. But I don't think we can ignore, as Isidro says, cannot ignore this particular report. And we need to get more information and look into it further. And I would appreciate it if you're going to Google the report, if you let us know what you conclude after reading it.
Well, again, my point is, this is not an imminent danger. It's been going on for 100 years. And if there were a real problem, the world would have done something about steel dust way before now. So obviously it's something we should look at, but does it require any kind of hysteria at this point? In my opinion, no. And I will be using the subway very soon, and I will not be holding my breath.
Well,
All right.
I don't think any of us are suggesting that there should be hysteria, but it would be negligent on our part to completely to ignore the report.
I think we're at time there for that exchange. Debbie, you're the last one here.
Yeah,
2
I
minutes
do want
on
to say
the-
that was a little back and forth, which we're not all allowed to do. So just for division of labor, Steve, why don't you cover all the air quality, questions or pursuing on the NYU side, and I'll, hear from MTA on what they have to say about it. Okay, so I'll cover MTA, you cover the air.
All right, very good.
Wonderful. Thank you. With no other hands, we'll move on to Youth and Education by Faith Rotimon as chair. Faith, you have the floor. Faith, do we have you on?
She sent me a reso, so I'll screen share for her.
Okay. We can't seem to hear her though. All right, I'm gonna text her, but in the meantime, Liz, let's have you do Parks and Culture Affairs. I'll come back to Faye. Let me see what's going on with her technology. 3 minutes on the floor. Liz, go ahead.
Yeah, just really briefly, we had a good meeting with an interesting presentation from the Natural Areas Conservancy on forest reclamation work in Highbridge Park. At our next meeting, we will be hearing from the Central Park Conservancy and work that they are doing. They're doing work in parks around the city, including of relevance and importance to us, work in Highbridge Park. So we'll be hearing about that. And we'll also be hearing from the folks at EDC. I believe it's been a little bit of back and forth on that, from the folks at EDC on the proposed the parks that are going to be built with at the North Cove and Academy Street. The main takeaway from our meeting last week was a resolution under new business supporting 1% for parks and 1% for arts. The 1% being 1% of the city's budget. So we're happy for 98% of the budget to go to everything else, but we would like 1% for arts and 1% for parks. Currently, parks has about 0.6% of the city's budget, and arts has about 0.5% of the city's budget. So we would like to see basically a doubling of the arts budget and almost double it, like what's that, about a 80% increase of the of the parks budget. That's it. Any questions?
I don't see any. Oh, I do see one hand from Joel. Joel, you have the floor for 2 minutes.
What you got?
Liz, so every time they have this meeting, I miss it. Is there another one coming up? And
nope, we're never meeting again. You got no more opportunities. Of course there is. We'll be yeah, we usually meet the second Tuesday. So our next meeting will be June 13th.
June, at what time?
6:30 on Zoom.
That's probably why, because that's the time business development meets. That's
Yep.
probably why I missed it. Do they record these meetings? I'm sorry.
Yes.
They
Yep,
do.
no, don't apologize. They're recorded. They're on our YouTube channel.
Okay, good. So this is specifically for the North Cole, because I know they're trying to do a project there and they need public input. Is it?
Yeah, so what EDC did was they had really robust public input, a bunch of public meetings, both on Zoom and in person. They had walkthroughs. And then what they were planning on doing was taking that all and doing not a fully articulated plan, but like schematics and sort of digesting what it was that they had heard, so that before they proceeded more fully, they could say, this is what we're hearing in the aggregate. This is the kind of direction that we think we're going to go in based on the public input, and to get some public input on that, and then take the summer to do actual plans. Because for the first time ever, we had an agency come to this board and say, yeah, we're mindful of the fact that y'all don't meet over the summer, so we're trying to factor that into our planning. So that was a first.
That's good. I commend them.
Yeah.
And is this meeting coming up is in person?
No, Zoom. The committee meets on Zoom.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
You bet. Steve.
Thanks. You got Daryl then Steve, sorry.
Oh, sorry, Daryl.
Daryl's hand was up first. Go ahead, Daryl, 2 minutes.
Thank you. Yeah, just could you update us if you could on United Palace and the Tonys, because I know there was, I think, been some movement on that since we last met.
I actually don't have an update. I do know that, there's a writer's strike, and the writer's strike is not giving the Tonys an exemption. So the Writers Guild, I don't know what they're going to do. I just don't know. I've read a lot of people's surmise as to what might happen. It might be that some people have said, oh no, this means they're not having the event. Other people have said they're going to have the event, but it won't be televised. So we don't know. And it's a pretty fluid situation because, of course, if the writer's strike is resolved, which it may well be, then it becomes, a non-issue. So I don't have any information, and I would encourage people to not perpetuate the things. Like, I know that there's a very popular meme that people are cutting and pasting and circulating on Facebook about what they think the writer's strike means. We don't know. We don't know.
And I guess part of that too is I was wondering maybe they'll air it at a later date, or we'll be able to see it online. And if it's not televised, it's like, here this is this wonderful institution in our neighborhood that's not getting the spotlight it deserves. So
correct. I mean, many things are possible, and we are treading new ground because it's just not that. Yeah, this has never happened before.
I think we're at time there. Steve, you get the last 2 minutes here for this.
Yeah, I'd like to make a brief Parks Department announcement on something that I think only came together after Liz's committee met. We're going to be celebrating both Manhattan and the Bronx, the 175th anniversary of the High Bridge on Tuesday, June the 6th at 10 o'clock. I'm pretty sure that's the time. We're going to be meeting people from Manhattan. We'll be meeting people from the Bronx in the middle of the bridge, and hopefully shaking hands and celebrating the 175th anniversary. And I would certainly appreciate it if members of the board would come out and help us also publicize the event. So I don't think, Liz, and maybe I'm wrong, I don't think that we were in a position to mention that at your committee meeting.
That is correct. At that time, I had said it was either going to be the 6th or the 7th. There was a lot of back and forth as to which date. So thank you very much for providing that information. This is I'm pretty stoked. You know, for anybody who, if there's anybody here who hasn't been out on the High Bridge, you should go because it's pretty fantastic, and going when there's a big celebration and lots of hoopla and special guests and, you know, and kids and music and whatever. It's just all great. So do it. You'll be glad you did.
Oh, when is that?
Tuesday, June 6th at 10 a.m.
Great. All righty. I don't see any other hands for you, Liz. We're gonna move on to youth and education. I think Faye's audio is working now. Faye, I understand, has a resolution she is looking to share with us. This is not a resolution that the executive is taking up. This is a resolution that her committee has already worked on. She just wants to be able to talk to us about it as a part of her 3-minute presentation. Faye. Your 3 minutes are starting.
Hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, great. Well, officially, good evening, everyone. Thank you for allowing me, to speak my turn. So before we go into the result, and given the experience of all the presenting, the result, I just wanted and feel that it's important for me to share an interesting presentation that we have from Luz Mercado, who is the program manager from the Department of Social and Behavioral Sciences at NYU School of Global and Public Health. So her and her team came to present, they made a presentation regarding the a study they are working on it. The title of the presentation was the Spanish Intensive Care Unit Experience, and all have to do with during the, for the Spanish folks, their experience during an intensive care during the pandemic and after the pandemic, I guess. So they provided a description, of the study and the goal of the study. Under this title, this study was designed to address the significant gap in data, on the subjective experience of family members of the Spanish patients who are significant figures and the patient recovery. So the study seek to basically gauge or measure participants' understanding of the mechanism of the intensive care unit and how that influenced their perceived importance within. So, and ultimately, the study also, they hope to use the finding to generate providers, since the intervention to improve experiences and health outcome for the Spanish and that units, like the patients and their families. So they're trying to document all this, and hopefully they will come back to the board and give us, the finding or share the finding. They are actually, this is an ongoing activity, and they hope the board to share this information for the recruitment. And the people who can participate in that study, of course, is, Spanish, Latin, identifying individuals, family members of patients who had admitted into an intensive care unit between the date of March 2020 and March 2022 for, I think it was respiratory failure. And the age is starting at 18 years of age and older. And of course, based in New York City. And they need to be native Spanish speaker. I really hope the board share these surveys. Jacob actually suggested that for the other presenter to come to the Health and Environment Committee, Steve. So you probably already heard about it. If it's not, soon you're going to be hearing from these folks so they can present it at your committee. So aside from that, I wanted just quickly to say thank you to to the team, especially to the Presbyterian and New York Presbyterian, the Office of the Government and Community Affairs, Julio Batista, Scarlett Bueno, and also Sandra Harris for hosting our event. I think they really had the way that they treated us. It was
your 3 minutes are your 3 minutes are coming up. So
coming up, okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, I really thank them. The event went well. So now moving to the resolution. So our committee passed, Al Kellan presented this resolution. And as this resolution is looking into, is in support, I should say, in support of lowering the voting age to 16 for New York State election and also New York City municipal election. As you know, in the past, back in 2014, if I'm not mistaken, we already passed a resolution similar to that. The difference is that this time, by then we wanted young people at the age of 16 to be able to join community board. So now this time we're looking into the state to adopt the same concept so kids can vote it, at a state level and also in the municipal election. That's what this is all about. Now, based on the essence of this essence, then we did some changes on the proposal bill, which is still under the state consideration. And what we're looking into this is that we want the community board, we urge them to basically, how do you call it? Let me just look at the bottom of this. What we are looking into this is for community board to support or urge the New York City Council to support this. So at the bottom, you can see that 6 when yes, 1 no, and one parliamentary member abstain. There is going to be.
I think at this point, time is up.
Okay.
You do have one hand.
Can I just say this is going to be, because just for the record, I think it's important that I said that it was explained to the committee that further elaboration will be on this, and it's going to be up to the executive committee and at the general meeting where a final decision will be taken as well for the amendment. That's it.
Thank you. Steve, your hand is up first.
Yeah, I believe I have a correction for the third whereas. If what we're talking about is state legislation, Congressman Espaillat would not be a co-sponsor. He would be a supporter, perhaps.
That's correct.
He would not be a co-sponsor of this legislation.
That's correct, Steve, and that's exactly and of course your friendly amendment is accepted, yes, but this is very valid because it's a federal level, yes. So he supporting.
Right. Okay. But
yes. Thank you, Steve.
All righty. Mariel, your hand is up.
Thank you, Angel. Thank you, Faye, for sharing this with us. I think this is really great. Such a good way to show and encourage civic participation for our young people. I wonder if any other community boards have kind of done something similar. Helpful to know. And then, once this is presented at our general meeting, and if it passes, I would love to share with DYCD in my kind of capacity as a community action board member, because I think they would really like to see something like this. Thanks.
Well, this is very important questions, and yes, definitely yes, because that's something that we exactly did in the previous resolution that we passed. This was echoed to other community boards. 9 support, all community board support, starting with our great support came actually from the board of president, Get Brewer at that time. But yes, the intention would be repeated.
Wonderful, thank you. So you have a hand from Liz and a hand from Daryl, and we will be done with hands for this round. Liz?
Yeah, love this. And just further to Steve's comment, I would just throw in an extra whereas and indicate that our other non-state electeds, including the federal congressman and the state city council members, support this, and just have that other whereas speak only to Senator Jackson and Assembly members De Los Santos and Taylor. And not that you asked, but I am enthusiastically in favor of this. And I love the campaign that is brewing to implement this in New York City and New York State.
Thank you, Liz. Well accepted, yes. And I wanted to say that actually, and And the draft that we are going to resubmit it, actually, we are articulating exactly that that we asking the support of federal level, state level, and then we go on with the names. So you will see something pretty similar, of course, including what you just said. But yeah, we're going to make distinction, on these folks.
Right.
Federal level, it's basically like Steve said, just supporting.
Got it. All righty. Darrell, your last hand up.
Thank you. Was there a whereas, I'm sorry if I missed it, on like language access? Was there something you had on that?
Not sure I understand what you were saying. Say it again, please.
You said something about like language access or something. I wasn't sure what.
What I'm saying is that in the similar to what Liz she was saying, is that we are going to distinguish, for example, that folks like congressmen and like, for example, those at federal level, we're going to specify exactly that. We're not looking for them to vote on it, but just to support that, to support the resolution. And we are actually specifically saying that we're going to be labeled like the support of federal, state, and local governments.
Okay, that's not what I was referring to. You had said something about like native language speakers, and I was just
native language.
That was a different reso.
Oh, okay. Okay, sorry.
All right. Liz, I see your note about asking Faye to send this around, right? Was that what you
Yeah,
were gonna say?
that's what I raised my hand for.
Okay. So if you don't mind sharing it around with the members of the executive committee so that they can provide any other recommendations, that would be helpful.
I do have several amendments, but I think that they are quite substantial. And I don't know if, given the time that we have, if I should, read
No. The changes that I'm suggesting are things like capitalization and punctuation. And rather than waste anybody's time with a conversation, if you just send it to me, I'll fix it and send it back.
All right. So I wanted to say that what I am going to be sending is also include other changes that, we implemented.
Great.
Yeah.
Love it.
Right. But any help, it would be much appreciated.
Thanks.
Learn from the expert.
Wonderful. With no other hands, we're going to move over to the task force reports. First, we have bylaws. Darrell.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, Faye.
Yeah, just very quickly. We went over at our last meeting about Article 9 and the end of Article 8, and then we'll be talking about meetings, which is Article 10, which is a long article. That's probably all we'll get to cover at our next meeting, which is this Wednesday. We switch it to the third Wednesday of the month. That's it.
Great. You do have one hand, Maria.
Thanks, Angel. Darrell, I recall that, and please remind me, maybe I'm not remembering correctly, but I recall you mentioning something about then kind of producing or putting forward some recommendations to the entire community board, or having sessions to discuss kind of what the task force is. Am I remembering correctly, or?
Yes, and we're gonna talk about that at our next meeting as well. I think the deliberations have been very thorough, and we haven't had I think the timeline I had hoped per se, but I think the conversations have been wonderful and very detailed. So I don't mind that it's taking a little bit longer, but yeah, I definitely anticipate when we return from the summer break that will then folks will have an opportunity to weigh in if they haven't already.
Okay, very helpful. Thank you.
All righty, and with that, Nobles for the Cannabis Task Force update.
Thank you very much. Hey folks, we had a Cannabis Task Force meeting yesterday. And I recorded it. In it, it was pretty cool. This would be our second one. And I also do apologize. I try to get the board out for it, but my communication level, I get so much spam in my Gmails. I did not see the approval come through from the office. That was totally my bad. Shout out to Ebenezer and Paola. Apologize for that. But I did record our meeting. I sent out the minutes just now, actually. I was able to do it while I was on the call. Send out the minutes. What we discussed. Follow up from our last meeting on the application that we're looking to create. Thank you to Angel and Catherine for not only getting me the licensing committee's application, but also I was able to receive Community Board 2's application. And actually that is one of the only applications for cannabis retail that has been used in the field so far. So I was able to use that in comparison to not only what we have here for licensing, but also the nuances for our localization and also for the market in our area. I had reviewed it on our meeting, and that would be now our second round for input. But in this, I am also going to be sending it out to the executive committee along with the minutes from last night's meeting and the recording. Definitely take a look at it on your own time. It's pretty descriptive, and there's a technical difficulty in there that I had, but I worked it out. But certainly happy to have conversations at all. The next steps when it comes to this application is, now that we've gone through 2 rounds within the committee on it, I will be bringing it to the committees actually individually, and during the public session or whatever you designate within your meetings, be able to speak to what this application looks like. A couple things here though. For one, I'm going to definitely ask my task force members to lean in a little bit more when it comes to bringing this survey and the conversations to the committees. I certainly can't do it alone. There's a lot of committees to cover, and a lot of other things to do. But I understand, everyone's busy, so it's all good. I'll try to disperse that bandwidth. But from that conversation from those committees, I will be starting this sometime. I'll be starting this at the beginning of June for sure. I will be revising the application and then bringing it to the executive committee in June. And then from that executive committee, and that won't be the first time you're seeing it, by the way. You're already going to see the second round of it that's going to be going out with the minutes. So I want you guys to know that. But obviously conversations in between that. But I will be bringing it to the executive committee in June. Hopefully I'll get a majority of head nods there. Obviously this is ongoing work, but at least it'll put us in a good enough space, I'm hoping, from this executive committee meeting to have enough confidence in this survey, especially in comparison to some others in Manhattan, which again, there's only one at the moment. We might be number 2, which would be awesome as a trailblazer, but also, what is that? Raised nails, get the hammer or something, but obviously a part we're willing to play here as leaders. But it's an ongoing process, folks. But we're going to have our best case foot first, going forward in this meeting. So that's really the plan when it comes to how we're going to be doing the application process. I will say we will be getting applications more than likely in our next term, or once we come back from break. 30 seconds. Thank you so much, Samadi. We'll be getting applications when we come back from break. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. I already know there's some folks that have applied, I think, in our area for a license. And so at least getting on like a 70%, 80% there for application with the head nods when it comes to our next executive committee meeting, we'll be in a great place when we come back from break to be able to review some applications that might have been stored up over the summer. And that's really my goal here, is to get us in a good enough place to be ready when we come back. I'll take some questions.
Do we have any questions?
I'll be sending diplomats to all your meetings. I promise. I'll be to some of them, but I can't do them all. So I'll be sending diplomats for sure.
Wonderful. Thanks,
Cool.
Nobles.
Thank you.
We don't have any old business or new business on the agenda. So with that, I think we are ready to call this meeting to an adjournment. Can I get
I move to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second, third.
With no objections? The meeting is adjourned at 9:32 p.m. Thank you, everyone. Have a
Good night, all.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Angel.
Bye.
Everyone, thank you.